Luigi died while exposing campus sweetheart Jiang Yuling, only to wake up as a tiny tarantula trapped inside her livestream cage. His new system came with one absolutely broken rule: eat a poisonous creature, survive its toxins, and steal the best parts of its biology. A gecko gave him regeneration, venomous insects upgraded his poison, and every nightmare on Jiang Yuling's menu became another evolution. She named the spider Nyx and treated his death matches like premium content, never realizing her supposed pet still remembered being human. When Jiang Yuling tried to enslave him as her bound goo, Luigi's strange constitution devoured the contract and turned her ritual into his power-up. Freedom did not make life normal. It gave Nyx a forest nest, 3 spider children, a tiny snake companion, and enemies from the hidden world. As his venom, razor silk, lightning, invisibility, regeneration, and psychic web evolved, the internet started treating Nyx like an urban legend. The Goo clan wanted his body. The secret bureau classified him as a threat, and a purple contamination kept mutating everyone around his old campus. Luigi built a network through Lin Bingbing, Longji, Baihua, and Yang Xining while fighting to protect humans who might hunt him on sight. This is how one murdered freshman became a monster called Nyx and chased the truth behind his rebirth all the way to the name Bai Shi. The first thing he saw after dying was a smiling college beauty holding his glass prison toward a live stream camera like she was unveiling a new iPhone. He could not read the comments, but he recognized her voice immediately. Jiang Yuling, campus sweetheart, amateur reptile streamer, and the woman responsible for his extremely inconvenient death. Yesterday, he had been Lu Ji, a freshman at New Media University, with tuition problems, mediocre grades, and the deeply unfortunate habit of caring about missing friends. His roommate Liu vanished after meeting Jiang Yuling. When the police found nothing, he broke into her off-campus apartment, expecting evidence, not a private horror museum. He found Lu Yu tied up, half-conscious, surrounded by cages filled with centipedes, snakes, spiders, and things that looked illegal in at least 3 different countries. Then Jiang Yuling came home. The sweet campus goddess closed the door behind her, smiled at him, and proved that every horror movie victim really does ignore warning signs. He remembered purple light, chanting pain, Lu screaming, and something crawling beneath Jiang Yuling's skin. Then everything went black, which should have been the end. Instead, he woke with 8 legs, 2 fangs, terrible eyesight, and the humiliating discovery that terror now made him kick irritating hairs off his abdomen. Yang Yuling tapped the glass and laughed. Nyx, you're shaving again. Apparently, she had renamed him after the goddess Nyx, while turning his afterlife into sponsored entertainment. He wanted to tell her exactly where she could put that nickname. Unfortunately, his new mouth parts were designed for liquefying insects, not delivering customer service complaints. She dropped a mealworm beside him. For one beautiful second, the open lid looked like freedom until basic survival instincts reminded him that he barely knew how to walk. Escaping now would be like stealing a motorcycle before learning which end pointed forward. He stayed put, stared at the mealworm, and questioned every decision since birth. Then a mechanical voice sounded inside his head. A translucent panel unfolded across his vision, and suddenly becoming a spider was no longer his strangest problem. It identified him as an Amazonian blue-purple bird-eating tarantula. The system panel listed his pitiful vitality, basic venom silk, irritating hairs, and something called poison refining goo. Another talent translated more clearly through instinct. His body could resist poisonous and spiritual corruption, then absorb useful properties instead of dying from them. The mealworm stopped looking like disgusting cafeteria food and started looking like an experience point with legs. He lunged before human dignity could file an objection. His fangs sank in. Venom worked. The mealworm went still, and after he fed, warmth traveled through his body, while the system quietly recorded growth. That was his impossible opportunity. He could grow by devouring dangerous things. The obvious downside was that his entire menu now belonged behind warning labels. Jiang Yuling clapped her hands. All right, Nyx, warm-up's over. She lifted another container, and something brightly colored moved inside with extremely unfriendly confidence. A gecko landed in his enclosure. Its data appeared automatically. Stronger than him, healthy, alert, and apparently selected because his murderer believed death matches improved engagement. The gecko did not attack immediately. Neither did he. Two animals stared at each other while the human with the ring light decided patience was bad content. Purple light flashed faintly in Jiang Yuling's eyes. She nudged the gecko, and a wave of unnatural aggression suddenly pressed against his own mind as well. The system reacted instantly, blocking an unknown mental interference. His rage vanished like someone had flipped a breaker, leaving one terrifying conclusion behind. Jiang Yuling was not merely a murderer who kept exotic pets. She could manipulate minds, and whatever had transformed him had somehow made him resistant to her. The gecko charged. He raised his front legs, intercepted it, and felt transparent liquid splash across his body. The system announced poison immunity before panic could arrive. He hooked the gecko sideways, buried his fangs near its neck, and held on while it thrashed hard enough to make his glass world shake. About a minute later, it stopped moving. His first real kill as a spider left him shaking, relieved, disgusted, and embarrassingly proud at the same time. Jiang Yuling congratulated Nix for winning. Somewhere beyond his blurred vision, the live stream comments exploded. He had become entertainment without signing a release form. When Jiang Yuling moved the camera away, instinct took over. He wrapped the corpse, injected digestive fluid, waited, then drank what remained of his opponent. The system rewarded him immediately. His venom improved. His vitality jumped. Heat rolled through his body until consciousness slipped away beneath another forced evolutionary sleep. When he woke after midnight, his shelter felt smaller. His body had grown several centimeters. His senses sharpened, and even his silk felt thicker. For several minutes, he forgot revenge. He simply stared at his status panel, realizing the rules governing ordinary animals no longer applied to him. Then memories of his parents arrived. His friends, his dorm room, his phone and computer, both probably sitting in police evidence storage by now. That thought produced a new nightmare. Forget being declared dead. Eventually, his parents might receive his hard drive. Some things should remain buried with the deceased. Humor kept panic from swallowing him, but only barely. He was probably the fifth student to disappear, and Jiang Yuling was still walking freely through campus. If he could not become human again, he could at least make sure she never hurt another friend. Revenge gave his new body something solid to move toward. The next afternoon, Jiang Yuling returned early and froze at his enclosure. "Nix, did you get bigger?" Her surprise was satisfying enough to count as dessert. He lifted his front legs at her. She interpreted the gesture as enthusiasm. Murderous hostility apparently looked adorable when performed by a fluffy animal. "Rest up," she said. "Tonight's opponent is dangerous. Survive, and maybe you'll finally qualify as her bound goo." His 8 legs nearly forgot how to stand. Bound goo meant ownership, contract, control. He had died trying to free a friend, and this woman intended to turn his second life into permanent slavery. That fear created his first clear goal: grow faster than Jiang Yuling understood. Learn what she truly was, then leave her cage on his own terms. Night came. The live stream opened. Jiang Yuling teased her audience with a new friend, hiding the creature beneath a tile inside another transparent enclosure. A smaller tarantula wandered beneath the tile. Something black and segmented shot out, wrapped around it, and exposed a centipede longer than his entire body. The system identified a Galapagos giantid centipede, 32 centimeters long, vitality above his. His survival odds had officially entered Ask Your Attorney territory. Jiang Yuling asked the audience whether Nix should go on a date with the centipede. Judging by the cheering, democracy had failed him spectacularly. He landed on the centipede's soil while it was still eating. His whole body tightened. If Jiang Yuling used her mental trick again, hesitation would kill him. Purple light began gathering in her eyes. He moved first, sprinted across the substrate, and drove both fangs into the centipede before it fully noticed him. Its body whipped around. Mandibles punched into his abdomen and pain exploded through him. Even though the system neutralized the venom itself, apparently poison immunity did not include complementary anesthesia. He kicked clouds of irritating hairs while pumping venom as fast as his glands could manage. The centipede tried wrapping its body around him, but their sizes were close enough that it could not form a clean, crushing coil. Its movements slowed. His hair irritated its joints and eyes. He released, repositioned, and stabbed through the head plate before it could recover. The giant centipede finally collapsed. He remained over it for several seconds, waiting for another surprise, because resurrection had already happened to him once. The stream audience apparently went wild. Jiang Yuling sounded genuinely impressed. He cared less about applause than the corpse containing another chance to evolve. He began digesting it while Jiang Yuling lectured viewers about reptile care with the calm tone of someone who had not just hosted gladiatorial combat. The centipede took forever to liquefy. When he finally fed, the system announced a large vitality increase and stronger venom. Before sleep dragged him under, he woke larger again, nearly 30 centimeters across, with denser hairs and stronger silk. His senses could even detect Jiang Yuling breathing in another room. For the first time, revenge stopped feeling like fantasy. Every poison creature she threw at him was training the weapon that might eventually kill her. Unfortunately, Jiang Yuling noticed too. She returned the next morning, dug through layers of webbing, found him underneath, and stared like a scientist, seeing impossible results. "Did you eat steroids?" she muttered. He wanted to answer, "No, just your retirement plan." But Fangs remained criminally bad at sarcasm. She tossed in another centipede before leaving for class. He waited until the apartment door closed, killed it, fed, and felt his poison change again. By evening, his venom had become corrosive enough to damage more than nerves. That mattered, because Jiang Yuling's next opponent was not interested in polite introductions. Jiang Yuling arrived late that night and rushed the livestream setup. The creature waiting beside his enclosure looked less like a toad and more like industrial equipment. The system identified it as a mutated golden mountain toad with multiple abilities, vitality far above his, and enough body mass to make direct wrestling suicidal. The comments apparently recognized it from an earlier stream, where it had killed 15 centipedes. Jiang Yuling called that history exciting. He called it relevant evidence. The toad attacked without mental prompting. Its body compressed, cheeks bulged, and a jet of dark green liquid shot across the enclosure like biological artillery. He jumped aside. The stream probably loved the spectacle. He was too busy wondering when amphibians had started applying for range combat certifications. Then the toad inflated until it occupied half the enclosure. He circled, looking for its back when its tongue snapped outward faster than he expected. Sticky flesh struck his abdomen. A hooked tip caught him, and suddenly he was flying directly toward a mouth large enough to erase his entire career. He fired hairs reflexively. They accomplished nothing meaningful. The toad swallowed him, leaving several legs briefly visible before darkness closed over everything. The audience believed he had died. Jiang Yuling apparently refused to intervene, claiming feeding animals were dangerous. That was one way to describe attempted murder. Inside the stomach, however, panic gave way to calculation. His body resisted poison and spiritual corruption, while his venom had recently become corrosive. If the restaurant swallowed the customer, he could still review the restaurant from inside. He sank both fangs into the stomach wall and started pumping. The tissue softened immediately. Acid burned his body, but not quickly enough. He spread all 8 legs and braced against contractions, trying to force him upward. Every convulsion became worse for the toad. He ripped at its stomach while delivering more venom, turning its digestive advantage into an internal crime scene. 10 minutes later, the massive body stopped moving. He crawled through its mouth, battered, burned, and alive, probably creating the strangest resurrection clip on campus. For once, Even sounded shocked. He stood on the dead toad and understood something important. Raw strength mattered, but thinking mattered more. The system did not save him by itself. It gave him tools. Surviving depended on whether he could use them before something larger swallowed him whole. That lesson became a quiet turning point. He stopped seeing himself as Luge trapped inside an animal and started seeing a predator learning new rules. Eating the toad remained disgusting. Survival does not always come nicely. He fed anyway because dignity was currently less useful than evolution. Sleep took him, and when he woke, his body had transformed beyond normal tarantula proportions. Black armor gleamed beneath blue-purple markings and strangely pink joints. He measured roughly 43 centimeters across. His front legs had become harder, his corrosive venom stronger, and a new ability appeared. Venom Arrow. A normal tarantula should not spit poison. Then again, a normal freshman should not wake inside one. He stopped asking evolution for paperwork. The system explained vitality more clearly. Ordinary adults averaged around 1. He had reached that territory while still wearing 8 legs and enough hair to clog ventilation. More importantly, growth showed no obvious ceiling. He could keep consuming poison, spiritual energy, and mutated creatures, as long as his body survived the process. Jiang Yuling opened his lid and reached in, delighted by his new colors. Purple light flashed through her eyes as she ordered him not to bite. The system blocked her influence again. He nearly attacked after everything she had done. Her exposed hand looked like revenge, finally offering curbside pickup. Then her information panel appeared. Symbiotic body. Her vitality reading made his look like a typo, and the number carried a warning he could feel instinctively. He abandoned the attack before stupidity could become a memorial service. Jiang Yuling lifted him anyway, admiring the pink coloration with offensive enthusiasm. He shuddered and released a cloud of irritating hairs directly onto her arms and face. She screamed, dropped him, and sprinted toward the bathroom. That victory was childish, petty, and deeply therapeutic. If revenge had a free trial, he had just enjoyed the first 7 days. That evening, Jiang Yuling appeared on stream wearing a cap, mask, and clothes covering most of her skin. She blamed allergies without mentioning her homicidal pet. Then, she dropped a long venomous snake into his enclosure. Its vitality approached his. But this time he had something it had never encountered. He fired venom arrow. A pale jet crossed the gap and struck beneath its jaw before the snake could fully raise its head. Corrosive poison ate into tissue. The snake lashed its tail, but he jumped clear and fired again, striking near the vulnerable region behind its skull. 3 breaths later, it stopped moving. The stream went silent before erupting. Even seemed unable to explain why her tarantula had become artillery. He could. Every monster she fed him was rewriting his biology. The cage was still a prison, but it had also become his private weapons laboratory. After slept, he consumed the snake. His irritating hairs evolved into venom-bearing needles, sharper and faster, capable of carrying poison into flesh. His vitality jumped again, surpassing an ordinary human several times over. He was growing faster than Jiang Yuling could reasonably believe, and she clearly noticed. The next day, she stayed home, rummaging through cages and equipment instead of attending class. Something about her movements told him she had made a decision. That night, 5 containers waited beside his enclosure. His first thought was that Jiang Yuling had finally discovered quantity discounts on attempted murder. She announced a grand showdown for more than 100,000 viewers. Nyx against 5 mutated venom creatures at once. Horn snake, green lizard, black toad, thick red-blue centipede, golden scorpion. Every creature possessed abnormal vitality, and Jiang Yuling's purple influence united them against him. He had more vitality than any single opponent, but numbers changed everything. They approached in formation, which felt unfairly organized for animals that did not pay taxes. He launched venom hairs into the air, then fired 5 corrosive arrows, 1 toward each target. Before they recovered, he sprinted onto the horned snake. Its body gave him elevation and cover. The lizard and centipede attacked from opposite sides, and accidentally bit the snake instead of him. He jumped down, but the golden scorpion had been waiting. Its claws snapped around one rear leg, and its stinger buried deep into his back. Poison immunity activated. Pain immunity once again declined to participate. The centipede seized his abdomen, while the scorpion refused to release him. He faced an ugly choice: stay trapped and get dismantled or sacrifice limbs. He chose survival and ripped himself free with brute force. 3 legs tore away. His abdomen opened. Vitality crashed. For several seconds, weakness hit so hard the enclosure seemed to tilt around him. So, he stopped fighting fairly. He leaped directly into the horned snake's open mouth and locked his remaining legs against its jaws. The snake could not swallow or bite. With him hidden, the other enraged creatures suddenly redirected their aggression toward the largest target available. The golden scorpion killed the centipede. The lizard attacked the snake and died to the scorpion's stinger. The toad joined the chaos. His host died beneath him. He tore through its tongue and slipped out while the final 2 opponents weakened each other. Then he fired venom until both could barely move, jumped overhead, and layered razor silk across them, until struggling only cut their bodies deeper. When the last creature stopped moving, the live stream exploded. He stood among 5 corpses, missing 3 legs, and feeling more alive than ever. Victory tasted like pain, poison, and the realization that Jiang Yuling was no longer testing whether he could survive. She was testing whether he qualified for ownership. She shut the stream off without her usual goodbye and approached his cage with a smile that made every remaining hair on his body rise. "Nyx," she whispered, "you passed. It's finally time to make you his bound goo." The sentence carried more terror than all 5 opponents combined. He could regrow legs. He could heal wounds. What he could not tolerate was another person deciding that his second life belonged to them. That night, he consumed the 5 creatures one after another. Razor Silk evolved, his vitality surged, and another evolutionary sleep overtook him. He had one thought before darkness arrived. When he woke, either Jiang Yuling's cage would break or he would die trying to break it. He woke, larger, heavier, and armed with front legs that had sharpened into natural blades. His fangs could now drain blood and spiritual energy while biting. His vitality had leaped dramatically. The system called his new form an awakened venomous demon spider species, which sounded less like zoology and more like a legal warning. Before he could test anything, every sensory hair rose. Someone had entered the apartment while Jiang Yuling was gone, moving with the caution of a professional burglar. A dried-faced middle-aged man opened his enclosure and began chanting. The air tightened around him, carrying the same invasive pressure used on mines. The system blocked the curse. He responded with venom hairs, sending microscopic poison needles toward his face. Before he understood, his spell had failed. Several entered his nose. His skin darkened and began breaking down. He screamed, stumbled backward, and sprayed black blood toward him. Some snorts landed on his body. Instead of harming him, the strange energy sank through his shell and strengthened him. The man's expression collapsed into disbelief. Jiang Yuling returned during his panic. She took one look at him and laughed. Apparently, she had expected the Gu clan to attempt theft. The man attacked her. Jiang Yuling avoided his grab, drove an elbow into his chest, and launched him into the coffee table hard enough to shatter glass. He summoned a massive red centipede that grew beyond a meter. Jiang Yuling drew a strange dagger, cut the creature apart, then crushed it beneath her foot. He watched from the cage and revised his assessment. Calling Jiang Yuling dangerous had been like calling a tornado somewhat breezy. The intruder stared at purple energy surrounding her and accused her of implanting a sacred goo, despite being only an outer disciple. Jiang Yuling told him the world contained many things he did not understand. He fled, warning that stronger clan elders would eventually come for her. That conversation opened a larger mystery. Jiang Yuling belonged to a hidden goo tradition, but she had broken its rules and obtained something powerful enough to frighten insiders. Unfortunately, she turned from the escaping man directly toward him. Now, baby Nix, will you finally become her little partner? His answer was internally enthusiastic profanity. Externally, he remained silent because biology had once again failed to provide a middle finger. Purple radiance flooded the room. A gigantic insect shadow appeared behind her, as invisible force pinned every leg against the enclosure floor. She spat dark red essence blood, wrapped it in purple power, and drove it into his body. A binding contract began forming around his consciousness. The system activated. His strange constitution dissolved the contract, then absorbed the blood and spiritual force that had been meant to enslave him. His vitality increased. Jiang Yuling's face turned pale. Seconds passed, and the connection she expected never appeared. Confusion replaced confidence. That was his opening. Razor silk exploded from the enclosure, wrapped her dagger, arms, and torso, and tightened until individual threads cut into skin. "Nix, have you gone crazy?" she screamed. That was a fascinating question from the woman who had fed him to 5 monsters for content. He shattered the glass, slid down his silk, and touched the floor outside his prison for the first time since becoming a spider. Freedom felt better than evolution. Revenge felt even better. He advanced on Jiang Yuling while she struggled against threads stronger than steel wire. For a brief, stupid second, victory seemed guaranteed. Then something inside. Jiang Yuling woke up. Pressure erupted from her body. Her eyes turned scarlet. Electrical arcs filled the darkened room, and her vitality climbed far beyond his. The systems labeled her symbiotic states unstable. He translated that into a simpler technical term. Absolutely not. He turned and ran. His silk slowed her just long enough for him to reach the balcony, leap into darkness, and disappear through the apartment complex greenery. Behind him, Jiang Yuling shouted that she would find him wherever he went. For once, he believed every word she said. He did not stop until half an hour later. He climbed a large tree facing her apartment and built a hidden web nest near the crown. His first home after captivity measured roughly 5 meters across, cost nothing, and came with excellent surveillance. Real estate finally respected his budget. He waited until Jiang Yuling left the next day, then returned through her balcony. Her apartment contained enough poisonous creatures to stock a villainous pet store. He killed nearly 60 specimens in minutes, wrapped them individually, and carried them to his tree nest over several exhausting trips. On his final visit, the system detected weak spiritual energy. Following the signal, led him behind a concealed compartment to a metal container. Purple light burst from inside, tore the container apart, and dropped a dark, irregular stone fragment onto the floor. He recognized it immediately. Months earlier, a meteor had fallen near New Media University. Official reports vanished almost as quickly as they appeared. He had once passed near the impact site. Afterward, he dreamed repeatedly about purple light, right up until Jiang Yuling killed him, and he woke as Nyx. The fragment connected his death, his rebirth, Jiang Yuling's mutation, and the system in a way he could not yet explain. That became the question beneath every other question. Had he truly been reborn by accident, or had something chosen this body for him? He carried the meteor fragment away. Back in his nest, he devoured 20 poisonous creatures, pushing his growth close to another evolutionary threshold. Then he touched his fangs to the stone. Spiritual energy poured into him so intensely that consciousness faded before he could pull away. When he woke, the fragment had become ordinary rock. His vitality rose sharply. His body stretched near 70 centimeters, and two disturbing abilities appeared. Mutation venom could transform infected living beings into loyal agents, granting them portions of his abilities while binding their loyalty through painful backlash. The second skill was egg-laying. It required no partner, produced spider eggs every 7 days, and immediately caused an existential crisis entirely unrelated to combat. He was male. He had been male yesterday. The system apparently considered biological consistency an optional feature available in a future patch. Then 3 soft, glossy eggs dropped from his abdomen. He stared at them so long that revenge temporarily left his to-do list. His life had gone from college freshman to kidnaps a sacrifice, giant spider, Leave-ream gladiator, supernatural burglar, and now single parent. He demanded an explanation from the system. It responded with silence, proving that even cosmic interfaces eventually learned the ancient art of avoiding accountability. Before he could process fatherhood, he sensed Chen Jiang approaching Jiang Yuling's apartment. His best friend was walking directly into the trap he had barely escaped. He followed from outside, keeping hidden. Chen had been searching for him constantly, and apparently decided self-preservation was less important than answers. He entered, carrying a phone set to record. Jiang Yuling welcomed him with false warmth, and he remained outside the window, ready to intervene. He later heard the recording clearly. Chen demanded to know where Liu Yu and Lu Ji were. Jiang Yuling stopped pretending and admitted both were dead. His anger and he nearly ruined the plan. He pushed for motive, hoping to collect evidence. But Jiang Yuling moved closer and froze his body with invisible pressure. Chen forced out one desperate punch. Jiang Yuling avoided it easily, kicked him across the room, and smiled while advancing for the kill. He could have stayed hidden. Jiang Yuling was stronger than him in her unstable form, and fighting her again meant risking everything he had gained. Then he remembered Chen staying awake during finals, because he had a fever. Lu lending him money and their dumb midnight arguments over instant noodles. Some debts are not calculated. He fired venom arrow through the open window and forced Jiang Yuling backward before her hands reached Chen's throat. She turned and saw him silhouetted against sunset. Nyx, you came back. Her happiness made the entire situation somehow more disturbing. He did not answer. 7 venom arrows crossed the room before she finished stepping away. Several missed, but 2 struck her body. A third hit her face. Corrosive poison began eating through skin faster than her symbiote could repair it. Chen stared at him, stunned, then did something profoundly Chen-like. Instead of running, he pulled out his phone and started taking pictures. He nearly experienced a second death from disbelief. He charged him, bared his fangs, and physically terrified his best friend into fleeing the apartment. Only after Chen disappeared downstairs did he return his full attention to Jiang Yuling. Purple energy was already forcing poison from her wounds. He buried her beneath thrown containers, webbed furniture, and even a box of mealworms, buying seconds while her symbiote struggled to restore her body. Then he attacked directly. His blade-like front legs pierced deep, and Jiang Yuling finally stopped treating him like an unruly pet. "You want to kill me?" she screamed. "Fine. Then I'll risk losing control and kill you first." Scarlet replaced her eyes. Blue lightning flooded the room. Furniture lifted in the pressure wave, and darkness seemed to collapse around her body. She crossed the distance before his senses could track her. Electricity locked every muscle, and her hand closed around his body with terrifying force. Life began draining out of him. Her wounds healed as his vitality fell. The system screamed warnings while his vision narrowed. This time there was no clever enclosure trick, no weaker opponent, no escape route. His enemy held him, and she was literally drinking his life. Images surfaced through the pain. Liu Yu dying, Chen running, his parents waiting for a son who would never come home. He had spent days promising revenge, but beneath revenge was something simpler. He wanted one chance to stand before his family as Liu Ji again. That desire became rage. His strange constitution reacted to the energy invading him, reversed the connection, and began devouring the Sims instead. Jiang Yuling's expression changed from triumph to confusion, then terror. The current between them reversed direction. A spiritual force poured into his body. He held on despite every instinct, screaming to flee. If he released her now, they would eventually repeat this fight under worse circumstances. Jiang Yuling aged before his eyes. Skin dried, muscles collapsed, and the scarlet light inside her dimmed as he consumed the force sustaining her. For the first time, she looked less like a monster and more like a frightened college girl who finally understood she could die. That moment almost produced pity. Then he remembered Liu. Whatever Jiang Yuling had once been, she had chosen too many victims for hesitation. Now her body finally fell still. The hidden symbiotic presence dissolved into energy, and his system began an evolution so violent that the apartment shook. He escaped before authorities arrived. Somewhere in the night, another species' name appeared across his vision, accompanied by a surge of lightning. He was no longer merely a mutant tarantula. He had become something the system classified as a true demon spider life form. And death did not end his problems. It only removed the first person standing between him and the world that had created her. Escaping Jiang Yuling's apartment did not feel heroic. Once the adrenaline faded, it felt cold. The city at night was enormous from ground level, and every sound reached his sensory hairs as vibration. Car engines became distant thunder. Footsteps traveled through concrete. Dogs barking behind walls sounded like territorial monsters with excellent lungs. He had wanted freedom desperately. Now freedom meant nowhere safe to sleep. His first instinct was to return to places he knew as Liu Ji. The dorm, his parents' apartment, Jiang Yuling's room, any place where someone might recognize the person trapped inside the spider. Then, headlights passed across the grass. He saw his shadow on a wall. Huge abdomen, 8 long legs, fangs. No human would see Liu Ji first. They would see something requiring pest control and possibly military support. That realization hurt more than the physical wounds Jiang Yuling had given him. He climbed a tree because instinct suggested height meant safety. Near the crown, he built a platform of silk without consciously planning each movement. His legs knew what to do. That frightened him. Human memories told him he hated spiders. Spider instincts told him exactly how to engineer a stable web against wind. Both truths existed inside one mind. He spent the rest of the night watching Jiang Yuling's apartment from the branches. Lights stayed on until nearly dawn. Sometimes purple energy flashed behind curtains. Whatever symbiote she carried had survived his attack. He had killed her only later because he chose to return for Chen. At that point, she remained an enemy recovering behind a window. He could have fled Yong'an entirely. That would have been safer. Instead, he stayed. Liu had died in that apartment. Chen was still searching. His parents were probably waiting for information. The woman responsible knew more about his transformation than anyone else he had found. Leaving would save his body and abandon every question that mattered. So, he turned the tree into surveillance headquarters. The phrase sounded impressive. In reality, it was one giant spider hiding behind leaves and hoping nobody looked up. His first practical problem was food. A human can buy noodles. A giant tarantula cannot walk into a convenience store unless the goal is local evacuation. He hunted insects, rodents, and small animals around the green belt. Ordinary prey kept hunger away, but produced almost no system growth. Poisonous prey mattered more. A small centipede increased venom slightly. A wasp colony taught him that poison immunity does not prevent being physically stabbed dozens of times. He learned fast. Each hunt rebuilt confidence. After nearly killed him, he began testing his body deliberately. Jump distance, silk strength, venom volume, reaction speed, how far he could fall without injury, how quickly damaged hairs returned, how much weight webbing could support. He treated himself like a laboratory because somebody needed reliable data, and his current research team had zero funding. The biggest discovery was that emotion influenced instinct. Fear made his hairs rise. Anger made venom glands respond faster. Hunger sharpened tracking. Calm improved web construction. His human mind could use those reactions instead of being controlled by them. That distinction became essential later. Jiang Yuling's mental influence had tried to amplify animal instincts. The system blocked her, but ordinary instincts still existed. If he panicked, he could still make stupid choices without supernatural assistance. Apparently, personal growth remained mandatory even after reincarnation. During daylight, he watched ordinary people pass beneath his tree. An old man walked the same small dog 3 times. Delivery workers entered nearby buildings. Children returned from school. Nobody knew a missing university. Student observed them from above. The normality felt cruel. He wondered what news coverage said about him. Police had likely connected his disappearance to Jiang Yuling's apartment. Break-in. Maybe they considered him a suspect. Maybe a victim. Maybe both. He could not access his phone. He could not safely enter an internet cafe. His second life had unlimited evolutionary potential and terrible connectivity. That afternoon, 2 police vehicles arrived near Jiang Yuling's building. His body tightened. Officers entered. They left later, carrying nothing obvious. Jiang Yuling accompanied them downstairs. Dressed normally, speaking calmly. She looked pale but alive. One officer even nodded politely before leaving. He wanted to tear the railing apart. She had killed people. She had cages, ritual materials, hidden rooms, and supernatural abilities. Yet, ordinary investigation could not prove what ordinary rules could not perceive. That taught him another lesson. Truth and evidence were not the same thing. Chen understood that before he did. He kept pushing when authorities stopped finding answers. Later, he learned he had already reported suspicions about Jiang, only to be told repeated searches produced no missing students. Her supernatural concealment was working. The moment police left, Jiang Yuling looked toward his tree, not directly at him. Near him, her lips moved. Nix. He stayed perfectly still. She smiled, then returned upstairs. He did not know whether she sensed him or guessed he would remain nearby. Their possibility meant the tree was temporary. That evening, hunger drove him farther from the apartment complex. He followed traces of venom toward an abandoned construction lot. A mutated scorpion hid beneath broken concrete. Its body was only slightly larger than normal, but the system showed spiritual contamination. He attacked from range. Venom arrow struck the shell and partially failed. The scorpion's armor resisted corrosion better than expected. It charged. He used silk to pull debris across its path, forcing it beneath a concrete fragment. The fight lasted less than a minute. The lesson lasted longer. Abilities had matchups. Poison did not solve everything. Armor speed, environment, mental effects, energy, and unknown mutations could all change outcomes. He ate the scorpion and gained a small increase. No dramatic evolution, just progress that felt strangely satisfying. Not every improvement needed fireworks. When he returned, he found a stray cat staring at the lower part of his tree. The cat could not see him through layered leaves. It could smell something. He remained still. The cat approached. His hunting instinct activated automatically. For one ugly second, he measured distance and imagined feeding. Then the cat meowed. Human memory interrupted. He remembered his mother feeding strays behind their apartment. He backed away. The cat eventually left. That small choice stayed with him. He could eat many things now. The question was not whether he could. The question was what kind of creature he wanted permission to become. His rules began there, not with philosophy, with one hungry spider deciding not to kill a cat, because his mother would have hated it. That night, he dreamed as Lu Ji. He sat at their family table. His mother complained he had lost weight. His father asked whether college expenses were manageable. His phone kept buzzing with Chen's messages. Then he looked down and saw 8 black legs beneath the table. Everyone continued eating as if nothing had changed. He woke violently. The silk beneath him tore. For several minutes, he could not remember which body was real. That was the first time he genuinely feared losing himself. Revenge was easy to understand. Identity was not. He began repeating human memories intentionally before sleeping. His school ID number, his parents' birthdays, Chen's terrible singing, Lu's favorite game, the route from dorm to cafeteria. Little ordinary things. If memory could fade, he would rehearse it like training. Later, when evolution made his senses stranger and his mind larger, that habit became an anchor. It also explained why the meteor fragment affected him so deeply when he found it. The stones did not merely promise strength. It was connected to the question of why Lu Jia still existed inside Nyx at all. Before finding that fragment, however, he needed information. Jiang Yuling's apartment remained the best source. He waited 2 full days before raiding it. Not because patience came naturally, because nearly dying once had improved his respect for surveillance. He learned when Jiang Yuling attended classes. He watched delivery times. He mapped neighboring window sets. He identified cameras. He discovered one elderly neighbor who spent extraordinary amounts of time observing the courtyard. That woman frightened him more than police. No supernatural stealth technique defeats a retired neighbor with nothing scheduled. He waited until she left for groceries. Then he moved. Balcony, window gap, ceiling, hidden shadows. The apartment smelled of venom, incense, and dried blood. Most cages remained. Some were empty. A few contained creatures strong enough to make him reconsider opening them immediately. He began with those he could defeat quickly. That raid became the foundation of his next evolution. It's also led him to the meteor fragment. More importantly, it was the first operation he planned entirely himself. No system instruction, no opponent chosen by Jiang Yuling, no cage. He selected the objective, controlled the timing, measured the risk, and escaped with what he wanted. The difference changed him. He was no longer surviving someone else's game. He was beginning to play his own at last. Jiang Yuling's death should have made life simpler. Instead, the city began mutating around him, as though someone had opened a supernatural pressure valve and forgotten where it was. News feeds filled with animal attacks, strange sightings, and government statements carefully constructed to explain everything while technically explaining nothing. He avoided people, whenever possible. A spider his size appearing beside a bus stop would create questions, videos, armed police, and probably merchandise within 12 hours. His new lightning ability changed hunting completely. He could generate electrical arcs through his body and channel them along silk, turning webs into lethal circuits. The system also improved his regeneration. Lost legs returned faster, wounds closed rapidly, and the body that once felt alien had become disturbingly efficient. That efficiency frightened him. Every day, moving like a spider felt more natural. Every day, memories of walking on 2 human legs felt slightly farther away. He kept repeating his name privately. Lu Ji's student son friend. It sounded ridiculous, but he refused to let evolution erase the person underneath. His first priority was finding more meteor energy. Poisonous creatures still strengthened him, but spiritual energy accelerated evolution in ways normal prey could not. The city itself became a map of rumors. Wherever animals behaved impossibly or people disappeared, he investigated from rooftops, drains, trees, and shadows. Some incidents were nothing. Others produced creatures with vitality readings beyond ordinary biology, confirming the meteor was not an isolated accident. Eventually, he moved into the wooded back mountain behind New Media University. It gave him cover, access to the campus, and enough wildlife to avoid starving. His nest became larger and more complicated with layered silk tunnels, hidden exits, prey storage, and a central chamber containing the 3 phi eggs he refused to discuss. Then he met the snake, a golden white shape, moving through a mountain pond, carrying faint spiritual energy. His first thought was food, because personal growth had ruined his social instincts. The little snake surfaced, saw him, and called him Big Sister through their mental link. He froze so completely that a bird landed nearby without noticing him. Of all possible supernatural developments, gender confusion felt uniquely offensive. He protested that he was not her sister through the strange mental connection. His voice in her mind sounded far more feminine than he appreciated. The snake tilted her tiny head. She insisted her big sister was pretty. There are arguments you can win, and arguments involving a magical snake with the emotional reasoning of a preschooler. He chose conservation of energy. He checked her status. She was weak compared with him, spiritually unusual, and clearly not hostile. Eating her suddenly felt less like hunting, and more like felony paperwork. He spared her. She responded by following him around the pond, asking questions, calling him Baiji's sister, and treating his silence as encouragement. He had not given her his human name. When she insisted he needed something besides Big Spider, he chose Baiji as a temporary identity. It felt safer than Lu Ji. His old name belonged to parents, friends, and a body officially missing. Bai Ji belonged to whatever he was becoming. The snake introduced herself through a childish concept that eventually became Bai Hua. She liked shiny stones, clean water, and apparently attaching herself to dangerous strangers. He gave her a tiny amount of mutation venom, only after careful testing. Her body accepted it, strengthening without the violent distortion he feared. Their connection deepened enough for remote communication. She became delighted. He became concerned that he had accidentally adopted a second dependent before processing the first three. Bai Hua's loyalty was uncomplicated. She did not care that he had 8 legs, frightening venom, or his growing tendency to discuss food while inspecting enemies. That simplicity mattered more than he admitted. Around her, he did not need to pretend he was still human, or prove he deserved to become human again. Unfortunately, peaceful pond conversations did not survive long. The Gu clan had not forgotten Jiang Yuling, their dead intruder, or the abnormal spider connected to both. He sensed them before seeing them. Humans carrying poisonous spiritual signatures, accompanied by creatures whose bodies had been artificially pushed beyond natural limits. Their leader introduced himself through another man shouting as Long, a young Gu practitioner with enough arrogance to require its own environmental permit. They came hunting Nyx. He remained invisible above them, listening while they discussed capturing him alive and extracting whatever caused his mutations. Being treated like loot clarified negotiations beautifully. He opened with poison silk, thin threads stretched between trees, sliced clothing, trapped limbs, and turned their carefully organized formation into a confused group exercise. Their Gu creatures attacked first, venomous snakes, centipedes, and insects shaped by rituals rather than evolution. His poison immunity made most of their favorite tricks irrelevant. One practitioner threw a cloud of toxic powder. He walked through it while lightning crawled along his legs. His face suggested he had just discovered bankruptcy. Long Ji was smarter. He retreated, instead of charging using his Gu to probe the boundaries of his web before exposing himself. That restraint interested him. He disabled his companions, killed the creatures that threatened him, then trapped Long Ji separately instead of finishing him. Mutation venom had been waiting for a proper test. He injected a controlled amount into his arm. His body convulsed as the system rewrote something deeper than flesh, connecting Long Ji's life to his own. When he woke, fear remained, but betrayal had become physically impossible. The venom did not erase personality. It simply installed consequences for disloyalty. That distinction did not make the ability morally comfortable. He had escaped a forced contract only to discover he now possessed his own version. He decided immediately that he would not use it casually. Power could protect freedom, but power used carelessly could also turn him into Jiang Yuling with better excuses. Long Ji became his first human source of hidden world information. He explained outer disciples, inner halls, Gu breeding, ritual contracts, and the clan's obsession with exceptional creatures. He also warned that Jiang Yuling's implanted sacred Gu had violated internal rules, and stronger elders would come. Once her death became impossible to ignore. Every answer produced another problem. Jiang Yuling had been dangerous, but the organization behind her was older, larger, and experienced at hunting things like him. Long's loyalty meant he could send him back as an informant. He ordered him to behave normally and report movement against him. He stared at his massive body and asked what he should call him. He rejected the title of master and told Long Ji that Bai Ji was fine. His surprise reminded him that the hidden world expected domination, as naturally as ordinary students expected tuition increases. He returned to the mountain nest carrying stolen goose supplies and several bodies of poisonous creatures. Bai Hua immediately asked whether he brought snacks. He told her the bags contained dangerous venomous organisms. Snacks, she repeated happily. He moved the collection higher where she could not reach it, then remembered she was a snake and realized architectural parenting had limitations. Over several days, he devoured selected Gu creatures and tested his expanding abilities. Lightning became silk sharper, regeneration faster. The 3 eggs finally hatched. Tiny dark spiders emerged, each carrying traces of his coloration. They crowded toward him with such immediate instinctive trust that his entire body stiffened. He had killed creatures without hesitation. 5 minutes of being climbed by his own children nearly broke him psychologically. The system offered no childcare tutorial. Of course it didn't. Infinite evolution apparently came without customer support, family leave, or even a basic FAQ. He fed them small prey and discovered they shared faint communication through spider sense. Their simple emotions reached him as warmth, hunger, curiosity, and recognition. That last feeling hurt unexpectedly. They recognized him as home. He had been obsessed with returning to his family. Yet somewhere along the way, creatures existed whose family was now him. The thought added responsibility to survival. He could no longer gamble his life casually. Dying would not only end his revenge, it would abandon independence. Long Ji's warning arrived soon afterward. An elder-level hunter was moving toward Yungan, accompanied by a disaster-class serpent Gu called the Calamity Python. He looked at his children asleep under layers of web and understood exactly where the coming battle could not happen. He left the nest before sunset and chose terrain farther inside the mountain, laying webs across rocks, trees, and narrow passages. The Calamity Python announced itself before he saw it. Plants yellowed along its path. Insects dropped from branches, and even the air traced it wrong. Its vitality exceeded his. Its length was monstrous. Gray corrosive fluid from its body destroyed vegetation without registering as ordinary poison. The elder behind it expected the serpent to chase him down. He gave them exactly that impression. He sprinted through the forest while the python followed, weaving razor silk across every route behind him. The creature tore through most strands, but each one slowed it. Then Bai Hua's excited voice announced that she had found him. His blood would have frozen if spiders had enough blood for dramatic metaphors. She was approaching the battle at full speed. He ordered her not to come. She said she missed him, and he noted that those were not the same sentence. She appeared anyway, dropping onto his head with the cheerful confidence of someone who had never read a survival manual. The python attacked at that exact moment. He twisted aside, but burning gray fluid struck his back and began killing tissue without triggering poison immunity. For the first time since evolving, he encountered a substance his core talent could not simply neutralize. Parts of his body went numb as decay spread. Bai Hua panicked. Clean spiritual water flowed from her scales and slowed the corruption, buying him time he had not expected. She was weak, reckless, and suddenly essential. He changed strategy. Rather than flee straight, he circled back through his prepared web routes, letting the python entangle itself deeper with every pursuit. Lightning traveled through the silk. The forest flashed blue-purple as current entered wounds opened by razor silk, forcing the python into increasingly violent spasms. The Gu Elder attempted to support it with corrosive techniques and hidden insects. He fired venom arrows toward him whenever he exposed himself. This was not a duel. It was an argument between two systems of survival, and he had decided cheating was a flexible concept. The python finally slowed enough for him to climb its body. His front blades punched through scales, and his fangs found softer tissue beneath the jaw. He drained blood and spiritual energy while it thrashed, using his web anchors to keep from being thrown into the rocks. The elder tried to retreat when the serpent's vitality collapsed. Long's earlier intelligence had taught him exactly where he would run. A hidden web line caught his ankle. He fell hard, looked back, and saw him approaching through the dying serpent's coils. He demanded to know what kind of creature he was. He considered explaining reincarnation from meteor fragments, systems, and the absurdity of accidental spider parenthood. Instead, he gave him the simpler answer, the kind that should have been left alone. He died before reaching his next spell. The Calamity Python followed soon after, leaving enough spiritual material to push him toward another transformation. He dragged the useful remains away and returned to Bai Hoha, who was still trying to wash corrosive damage from his body. He wanted to yell at her for disobeying him. Instead, he realized that without her, the decay might have spread too far. "Thank you," he said reluctantly. Her joy came through their connection so strongly. It almost embarrassed him. Big Sister said, "Thank you." He immediately regretted encouraging her. The Calamity Python's energy pushed his vitality near the limit of his current species. His body began preparing for another evolutionary change. Before sleeping, he checked the nest, the children, and the distant lights of the university. Somewhere below, students lived the life he should have been living. He wondered whether Chen Jiang still searched for answers, whether his parents had accepted his death, and whether becoming stronger was carrying him home or farther away. Then, evolution pulled him under. When he woke, he had crossed another threshold. The system called his new species an ancient demon spider. His body approached a meter across. His silk evolved into myriad change silk, capable of expanding and extending far beyond ordinary biological limits. Lightning answered him more naturally. Spicer's sense reached farther. His physical shell felt dense enough that common weapons no longer inspired immediate panic. He had wanted enough strength to escape one college witch. Now hidden clans were sending elders after him, and he was beginning to understand that survival required more than staying hidden. If people kept entering his mountain to hunt him, eventually, he would need to decide whether the mountain belonged to them or to him. Defeating Wu Elder did not end the clan's interest. It upgraded his file. That was absolutely not a compliment. Longji reported that senior members had stopped describing him as an escape pet and started using terms reserved for strategic resources. He disliked the promotion. The clan's internal argument became surprisingly political. Some elders blamed Jiang Yuling for creating the problem. Others argued she had accidentally discovered a path toward cultivating unprecedented goo. A third faction wanted everyone involved killed so the government would not investigate deeper. Nobody suggested leaving him alone. Oh, what? Apparently, ancient organizations also suffer from meetings where the most obvious solution never reaches the agenda. Longji sat through those meetings and sent him summaries afterward. His reports revealed how the clan valued people. Bloodline first, rank second, useful creatures third, everyone else somewhere below furniture. That system explained Jiang Yuling better. She had not invented domination. She had grown inside a culture where power justified ownership and disobedience looked like malfunction. Understanding her did not excuse her. It did teach him what he refused to become. Mutation Venom could easily create his own version of that hierarchy. He could infect people, force loyalty, and build an organization where nobody dared disagree. Efficient, safe, horrifying. So, he established rules for agents before recruiting anyone else. No meaningless cruelty. No targeting civilians. No using his name to settle personal arguments. No bringing strangers to the mountain. No creating new agents without his approval. And most importantly, loyalty did not mean pretending he was always right. Longji looked genuinely confused by the last rule. Longji asked what happened if he thought Nix was wrong. Nix told him to say so, even if the answer still made Nix angry. Longji called that inefficient. It probably is. Freedom usually is. That conversation became more useful than expected. Longji started reporting his own judgments instead of merely repeating clan information. Sometimes he noticed patterns he missed because he understood their customs from inside. One report warned that the clan would stop sending isolated hunters. They had begun studying his known abilities from livestream footage, government clips, and surviving witnesses. They knew poison rarely worked. They knew lightning existed. They knew his silk was dangerous. They suspected intelligence. The next hunters would prepare around those facts. That meant he needed abilities they had not seen. He practiced invisibility more aggressively. He learned to place silk without leaving obvious anchor patterns. He experimented with electric current below visible intensity. He developed silent kills against small prey, then non-lethal restraint against human-shaped targets. Not everything worked. One stealth experiment ended with him dropping from a branch onto an abandoned bicycle. The bicycle collapsed. A security camera captured the entire event. The clip later circulated online as Nix loses fight with bike. He considered destroying the internet. Instead, he learned to check branches for structural integrity. Humiliation remains educational when properly monetized by strangers. Longji arranged access to a Gu clan storage site containing poisonous creatures scheduled for transport. He did not raid it immediately. That felt too obvious. Instead, he watched who entered. A young outer disciple spent hours feeding creatures while senior members ignored him. He handled them carefully, even the dangerous ones. One evening, an elder struck him for dropping a container. The boy apologized while bleeding. He remembered Jiang Yuling, not as the killer, as the student she might once have been inside that system. He changed the operation. Rather than simply destroy the storage site, he used Longji to create a false inventory transfer. Several cages were officially reassigned. Others escaped. The young disciple found a door mysteriously unlocked and chose to leave the clan entirely. Nobody died. He gained useful prey. The clan blamed accounting. That victory pleased him more than killing another elder would have. It proved power could solve problems without always becoming violence. Naturally, the next problem required violence anyway. A second inner hall team arrived with specialized anti-spider equipment. Flame talismans, freezing powder, metal nets. A goo bird trained to detect invisible movement. They had done homework. He respected that. Then he changed the exam. He never entered their prepared clearing. Instead, he cut the trail behind them, used web lines to trigger noises from multiple directions, and let fear split the formation. The detection bird found one of his silk decoys and screamed. 3 practitioners attacked empty air. Lightning struck their equipment while attention remained forward. Metal nets became electrical conductors. That design flaw felt almost charitable. The team leader escaped the first trap and released a mantis goo with blade forearms capable of cutting ordinary silk. Myriad change, silk was not ordinary. The mantis cut one strand. The severed end expanded into several thinner threads and wrapped around its joints. Its advantage became entanglement. He learned more from that exchange than from easier victories. Abilities interact. Strength is contextual. A perfect counter against yesterday's web can become tomorrow's trap. The team leader realized capture had failed and switched objectives. He ordered flame talismans thrown toward the forest, not at him. At the mountain, fire spread through dry vegetation. His nest was still kilometers away, but animals and hikers could be trapped. That decision ended his restraint toward the team leader. He dropped invisibility. The team leader finally saw Nyx and lost all color. Nyx projected that the man had wanted his attention, then attacked. He used defensive goo, spiritual armor, and flame barriers. He ignored the weaker constructs and targeted the handler connections instead. Razor silk severed lines between charms. Lightning overloaded protective objects. Venom arrow forced him to keep moving. He fought well. That mattered. He still won. When he fell, he did not consume him. He trapped him where firefighters would eventually find him alive and conscious. Then he extinguished the worst flames by cutting fire breaks and collapsing burning vegetation, and using Baihua's purified water where she could help safely. The clan expected corpses. Instead, their leader returned with a message. If they burned civilians to reach him again, he would stop returning survivors. That warning spread. Longji later told him even senior elders became quieter after hearing it. Not because they believed he was merciful, because they understood his restraint had conditions. That distinction protected more people than unconditional kindness would have. The mountain fire attracted local authorities and online attention. Students joked about couples smoking in forbidden areas. Nobody knew an ancient Gu clan had nearly started a supernatural forest fire behind campus. He watched firefighters leave at dawn and felt exhausted in a way evolution could not fix. Every hidden conflict risked spilling into normal lives. That was the real danger of secrecy. People could not avoid threats they were not allowed to know existed. Yet revealing everything might create panic, exploitation, and mass hunting. He did not have an answer. He only had territory, family, and rules. For now, that had to be enough. Long's next message contained a final piece of bad news. The Gu clan had contacted people outside their own organization. If they could not capture Nyx alone, they were willing to let other powers soften him first. That was the moment he understood. His enemies were beginning to coordinate. And sooner or later, the Secret Bureau would notice the same opportunity. Longji was useful, but useful information eventually led him to someone more complicated than a Gu clan informant, Lin Bingbing. He first learned about her through reports. Longji sent reports concerning people exposed to strange energy and surviving with abnormal changes instead of losing themselves completely. Lin Bingbing had strength beyond ordinary humans, sharp instincts, and the kind of personality that treated danger like a personal insult. When he finally approached her, he stayed invisible and observed before revealing himself. Trust had become expensive since Jiang Yuling, and he had stopped buying on credit. She sensed him anyway. Her hand moved toward a weapon while her eyes searched empty forest. She identified him as Nyx. The name sounded strange coming from someone who was neither Jiang Yuling nor a livestream viewer. It reminded him that his public identity already had a life. He revealed part of his body from invisibility. Lin Bingbing went pale, but she did not run. That earned more respect than most speeches could. Her story, which he learned piece by piece later, involved violence, betrayal, and enemies connected to the same hidden circles now circling him. He offered no sentimental promise. He explained mutation venom honestly. Strength, connection, loyalty, risk. She accepted after understanding the terms that mattered. He refused to become another Jiang Yuling by pretending coercion was partnership. The venom changed her without erasing her. Her vitality rose, her senses sharpened, and the system registered Lin Bingbing as agent number 1. She tested the new body, by punching a tree hard enough to crack bark, then looked at him with the smile of someone discovering useful property damage. Lin marveled that he could make people stronger. He replied that he could also make people regret stupid decisions. She nodded as though that sounded reassuring. Lin became his hands in places. An enormous spider could not enter casually. She could buy supplies, gather information, investigate rumors, and speak without causing traffic accidents. In return, he protected her from forces she could not yet handle, shared controlled improvements, and treated her as a person rather than equipment. Their arrangement was practical, but trust slowly grew around repeated choices. She reported bad news instead of hiding mistakes, which mattered more than obedience. Her biggest weakness was overconfidence. One night, she tracked a grotesque creature, assembled from mismatched animal and human parts, convinced her enhanced body could handle it alone. He arrived after she had already learned that looks stupid and is weak are unrelated categories. The stitched monster moved unpredictably, using multiple heads and limbs with different reflexes. Lin had wounds across one shoulder and blood on her clothes. He webbed the creature from above, pulling its rear limbs off balance, while Lin attacked the exposed center mass. It fought through pain because its nervous system was distributed. Destroying one section barely slowed the rest. They changed targets, dismantling joints, instead of chasing a non-existent single weak point. Lin finally crushed the central cluster, while his silk immobilized the remaining heads. Afterward, she expected criticism. He gave it to her. If you don't understand something, don't volunteer to become the field test. She looked at the corpse. It looks so does bureaucracy. It still kills people. That earned a reluctant laugh, but the lesson stayed. From then on, Lin became far more careful around unknown creatures. The monster carried traces of meteorated energy. Not enough for evolution, but enough to confirm contamination, was spreading through multiple biological pathways. Every incident pointed toward the same hidden center, the meteor, the purple energy, and whatever the authorities were not telling the public. Soon, the public stopped being able to ignore the problem. A containment base outside the city suffered a catastrophic breach. Mutated animals, biological experiments, and a growing flesh mountain merged into one moving disaster. He did not witness the first minutes. Lin brought him footage while emergency channels filled with evacuation orders and conflicting reports. The flesh mountain absorbed living material as it moved. Gunfire removed chunks, but the mass replaced them by consuming more creatures. Law enforcement drones and automated units fell back. Rockets slowed it without stopping it. The thing was becoming stronger simply by surviving attacks. Then his system detected spiritual energy from the direction of the base. That changed the calculation. He could have stayed hidden. The government did not know exactly where he lived, and the flesh mountain was not moving toward his nest yet. But civilians were trapped near the perimeter, and the creature contained the kind of energy tied to his evolution, and perhaps his origin. Survival, responsibility, and curiosity all pointed in the same dangerous direction. He told Lin to stay away from the front line. She asked whether he was going. He called that unrelated to whether she should go. She folded her arms, called him a hypocrite, and he agreed. He traveled through forest cover and reached the containment area after nightfall. Fires reflected off smokes while sirens and aircraft filled the sky. The flesh mountain looked worse in person. It was a moving wall of muscle, bone, animal faces, and half-formed limbs constantly sinking back into itself. For a moment, even he hesitated. Devouring poisonous creatures was one thing. Fighting something that looked like evolution's deleted folder was another. Then, a collapsing barrier exposed evacuees behind it. He moved. Myriad change silk shot across the gap, anchored to structures and formed a web wall that caught debris before it crushed the fleeing people. They never saw him clearly through smoke that suited both of them. The flesh mountain reacted to movement and turned toward his silk. Several malformed limbs slammed down, tearing asphalt and snapping weaker web strands. He answered with lightning. Electricity traveled across every connected thread, producing a blue-purple cage around the creature. Flesh burned where it touched silk. The monster screamed through dozens of mouths at once. He immediately decided one mouth per organism was an underrated design principle. Government sensors noticed him. Searchlights shifted. Drones rotated cameras. Somewhere operators began saying the word Nix with increasingly urgent voices. He had entered public history whether he wanted to or not. The flesh mountain launched chunks of itself like projectiles. He used web lines to swing between structures, cutting pieces apart before they could regenerate. Then missiles streaked overhead. For one terrible second, he thought the government had decided both monsters could share the same solution. The rockets struck the flesh mountain instead. The explosion forced it backward, but also scattered living tissue over a wider area. Several fragments began crawling independently. Wonderful, he thought. Now it has a franchise model. He expanded electrified webbing across the ground, burning smaller pieces before they reached new victims. A new figure entered the battlefield through smoke, a heavily augmented law enforcement combatant whose data dwarfed ordinary humans. Bad news. Later, he learned his designation was Xingtian, one of the government's advanced combat assets built through technologies far beyond anything civilians knew existed. At the time, all he knew was that he moved like a human-shaped weapon and looked directly at him without fear. They did not exactly become teammates. They simply shared the same immediate enemy and postponed deciding whether to kill each other. Xingtian hammered the flesh mountain from the front, while he immobilized its expanding mass with silk and lightning. The creature adapted, hardening sections against electricity and growing sacrificial layers that burned away before current reached deeper tissue. That intelligence was disturbing. He changed tactics again, using blade legs to cut channels through surface armor while injecting corrosive venom into exposed interior tissue. The venom spread where electricity could not. Xingtian exploited the openings, driving repeated strikes into structural concentrations of bone. The flesh mountain finally destabilized. Its attempts to absorb surrounding organisms slowed, then stopped as too many systems failed at once. When the central mass collapsed, the system highlighted a spiritual source buried inside. He moved before government teams reached it. A meteor fragment, of course. Everything monstrous in his new life kept circling back to rocks that had fallen from the sky and disappeared from public records. He wrapped the fragment in silk and pulled it free. Government aircraft immediately redirected toward him. Apparently, saving civilians did not include complimentary salvage rights. Xingtian stepped between his escape route and the forest. His posture changed from combat cooperation to containment. He understood he had done his job, and now he had become the next job. He released a broad lightning barrier across nearby wreckage, forcing drones and personnel back without directly targeting anyone. Then he disappeared into forest cover, using invisibility, web-assisted movement, and the darkness that had become increasingly comfortable to him. Aircraft searched overhead for hours. He reached his mountain before dawn. The meteor fragment pulsed beside his nest, while 3 young spiders crawled over his legs, unaware their parent had just become national news. Lin arrived later with a phone full of videos. The internet had named him everything from night goddess to electric nightmare, to that giant spider that stole government property. He watched one clip of himself crossing burning wreckage and felt a disturbing separation. The creature on screen did not look remotely human, yet that creature had protected strangers. Maybe humanity was becoming less about shape than he had assumed. Then an official press conference began. For the first time, the government admitted the meteor carried an unknown evolving influence capable of triggering abnormal biological changes. They categorized mutated organisms and described containment protocols without mentioning the full supernatural world behind those categories. Nix received special attention. He was classified as a high-risk abnormal entity whose motives remain uncertain. One official acknowledged he had attacked the Flesh Mountain and indirectly protected civilians, then immediately reminded viewers that he had taken restricted material. So, hero with theft charges, Lin summarized. Accurate enough. Public opinion split instantly. Some called him a monster. Others called him a guardian. A smaller group asked where to buy Nix's plush toys. Human civilization could apparently monetize apocalypse faster than government agencies could classify it. The humor did not hide the danger. His face, 8 of them, technically was now recognized nationwide. Every future appearance would bring cameras, hunters, and increasingly serious weapons. He absorbed the meteor fragment in private. Power surged through him, but so did another impression. The purple energy was not random radiation. It felt structured, almost intentional. The system still afforded no origin explanation. That silence became louder with every evolution. He had escaped Jiang Yuling's cage only to discover a much larger cage forming around the entire city. And somewhere above the city, whatever had arrived inside those meteor fragments was still writing rules. Nobody understood. Not reassuring. The Flesh Mountain fight changed his life without asking permission. Before that night was Nixon was mostly a bizarre livestream memory connected to a missing college beauty. Afterward, he became national conversation. Videos multiplied faster than authorities could remove them. One showed his electrified web catching debris above evacuees. Another showed him ripping the meteor fragment from the collapsed monster. A third conveniently began exactly when he fled government forces. Depending on which clip someone watched, he was a guardian, thief, escaped experiment, demon alien, or extremely ambitious pest control contractor. He learned that public opinion can transform faster than biology. The official press conference tried to stabilize the narrative. Scientists confirmed that meteor material contained an unknown influence capable of accelerating mutation and creating abnormal biological traits. They avoided words like demon, goo curse, spiritual energy, and the secret supernatural bureaucracy that had apparently existed for years. Instead, they created categories: ordinary mutation, dangerous mutation, unstable weird organisms, high-risk anomalous entities. Nix received his own slide. Seeing himself on a government screen from Lin's phone produced an emotion difficult to describe. Imagine attending your own wanted poster presentation while eating dinner through fangs. Officials acknowledged that he had helped stop the Flesh Mountain. Then they emphasized he had taken restricted meteor material and resisted containment. Fair. He had absolutely done both. Reporters asked whether he was intelligent. The spokesperson said behavior suggested advanced problem-solving, but refused to speculate about human-level cognition. He nearly sent them a correction written in silk. Then he remembered that human-level cognition would move him from dangerous wildlife to potential strategic actor. Silence remained safer. Online, however, silence created endless creativity. Someone edited heroic music over his entrance. Someone else added horror sound effects. A college forum debated whether Nix could understand Mandarin. One thread seriously discussed whether feeding him spicy food might domesticate him. He wanted humanity to survive the apocalypse. He was less certain humanity deserved Wi-Fi during it. Merchandise appeared within 48 hours. Plush spiders, phone cases, cheap shirts with blue-purple, lightning patterns. None of the sellers contacted him about licensing. He added intellectual property theft to his growing list of grievances against a civilization. The jokes helped him avoid thinking about the darker consequence. His parents could see those videos. He did not know whether they connected anything to him. Why would they? Their son had disappeared. The monster on television was only a monster. Still, watching families react to the footage made him imagine his mother's voice saying the spider looked frightening. He closed the video. Lin noticed and did not comment. That kindness mattered. Public fame also changed criminal behavior. Poachers and amateur hunters started entering restricted areas hoping to find mutated animals, meteor fragments, or evidence of Nix. Most found mosquitoes. A few found him. He scared the first group away using invisible web lines and a lightning flash that destroyed their equipment without touching skin. They ran so quickly. One abandoned an expensive camera. He returned it near a road later. He was a monster, not customer support, but his mother raised him properly. The second group brought tranquilizer rifles and baited cages that crossed a line. He trapped them upside down for several hours, removed their weapons, and left a burned symbol on a nearby tree. The symbol meant nothing. That was intentional. Humans fear mysterious warnings more efficiently when they invent the meaning themselves. Naturally, within days, online forums claimed the mark represented an ancient spider cult. He had accidentally founded a religion by drawing a crooked circle. He stopped leaving symbols. The clan interpreted his public exposure differently. According to Longji, elders believed government interest increased both the danger and value of capturing him. Several factions argued over whether he should be killed before the secret bureau secured him or stolen before rival clans acted out. Longji attended those discussions while carrying his venom inside his body. Espionage became strangely convenient. He reported names, routes, supplies, and planned operations. He disrupted smaller teams without killing whenever possible. One group woke in a roadside temple wrapped in silk, with every piece of gear smashed. Another returned, missing shoes, weapons, and dignity. A third did not return because their leader attempted to poison civilians as bait. Restraint has limits. He began learning something important about power. Killing everyone creates silence. Leaving the right survivors creates information. Stories about him spread through the Gu clan faster than corpses ever could. They began exaggerating his abilities. Some claimed he could hear lies through walls. Others said he controlled every spider within 100 kilometers. One elder insisted he could curse bloodlines through photographs. He encouraged none of this. He corrected none of it either. Fear was performing unpaid security work. Meanwhile, his actual abilities kept evolving through smaller hunts. He targeted creatures carrying poison or spiritual contamination, avoided normal wildlife when possible, and learned to distinguish useful energy from ordinary mutation. The system rewarded selective feeding. His lightning grew more precise. He could stun without killing. That became valuable when frightened mutated animals wandered into populated areas. Once a massive dog transformed near a residential block. Its muscles expanded, eyes clouded, and pain made it attack anything moving. He could have killed it instantly. Instead, he webbed its legs, discharged, controlled current, and waited for the rage to subside. The owner arrived crying. He remained invisible while emergency workers took the animal away. The dog survived. That incident produced no reward, no evolution, no useful poison. It still felt important. He had spent so long asking whether he was becoming a monster that he occasionally forgot what defined one. Monsters usually did not worry about avoiding unnecessary casualties. Maybe the question itself was evidence, or maybe that was comforting nonsense. Either way, he kept the rule. Do not hurt people who are not threatening him or others. Do not consume humans for convenience. Do not use mutation venom without necessity or consent, unless protecting lives requires it. Those rules were his. Nobody had forced them. That made them more important than any system restriction. He later realized this period changed how the Secret Bureau assessed him. Surveillance logs showed a pattern. Nicks appeared near dangerous anomalies. Civilian casualties were often lower afterward. He avoided direct human predation. He stole meteor material, but not money, weapons, or unrelated resources. Some analysts argued he might be negotiated with. Others warned, intelligence made him more dangerous. Both were correct. One internal memo called him a potentially rational, high-threat entity, displaying selective protective behavior. He liked that better than giant spider. It sounded employable. The growing pattern also attracted Yang Yuling. She later admitted she began tracking him more seriously after noticing he chose restraint even when nobody was forcing him. That did not make her contract proposal less annoying. It did explain why she risked approaching. The city itself became increasingly unstable. Mutated insects appeared in ventilation systems. Animals developed strange senses. People reported missing time, impossible shadows, violent dreams, and sounds from empty rooms. Most rumors were fake. Enough were real to matter. The meteor influence was no longer a single incident. It was becoming an era, and he was evolving faster than almost anything else inside it. That realization introduced no pride. If every abnormal creature was climbing the same staircase, he needed to know why he had started several floors above everyone else. The system still refused explanation. The purple energy still felt familiar. The meteor fragments still seemed to recognize his body. Some nights, while the children slept beneath webbing and Baihua hummed nonsense through their connection, he wondered whether Lu Ji had really been reborn. What if the human consciousness he called him was only useful material inside something else's growth? He hated that possibility. So, he kept testing himself with human choices, protecting strangers, remembering names, keeping promises, refusing easy cruelty, not because those things proved he was human, because they proved he was still choosing. The next major threat would make those choices much harder. Meanwhile, his best friend became somebody else's asset. Public attention made the mountain dangerous, so he adopted routines. Hunt after dark. Hide by dawn. Never leave recognizable silk patterns near the nest. The children grew quickly. That sentence should have sounded wholesome. Instead, it meant 3 increasingly large venomous spiders learning to climb everything he owned. Egg-laying activated again on schedule. He stared at the new clutch and understood why cosmic horror villains always looked tired. Apparently, immortality began with unpaid childcare. Bai Hua volunteered to help, he reminded her. She had once described his first brood as smelling delicious. She looked offended. That was before he knew they were family. He decided that counted as personal growth. Long Ji continued sending information from the Gu clan. Lin Bingbing handled city rumors, purchased supplies, and monitored police movements around the university. Both reports mentioned the same thing. Students were changing too. New Media University had become one of the most concentrated zones of strange incidents since the meteor fall. He wanted to investigate personally, but walking through campus as a meter-wide demon spider would create a modest scheduling conflict with secrecy. So he used rooftops, ventilation shafts, maintenance passages, and invisibility. Returning to campus hurt more than expected. He watched students carrying books between buildings, complaining about breakfast, relationships, assignments, and professors who believed sleep was a moral weakness. That had been his world. Now he crossed the same paths above their heads while measuring escape routes from armed response teams. He spotted Chen Jiang leaving a classroom one afternoon. He looked thinner. For several minutes, he considered revealing himself. Then he imagined telling Chen the good news that he was alive, and the bad news that he was the enormous spider from national television. No friendship handbook covered that conversation. He stayed hidden. He later learned Chen had been thinking about him constantly as well. One of their old friend group was dead, another missing, and he had become a legally confirmed mystery. The remaining boys coped the way young men often do. Jokes, games, silence, and conversations that carefully avoid the thing everyone is actually thinking about. Then another student lost control. Honu changed inside the university library. His strength, surging as strange energy, distorted his body and frightened everyone nearby. Chen Jiang reacted before security arrived. He grabbed Han, endured a blow that should have broken ordinary bones, and physically restrained him long enough for other students to escape. Class monitor Xia Qiang witnessed everything. Chen did not understand his own strength. He later learned he had been changing since exposure to events around Jiang Yuling's apartment. Gaia Technology noticed him. The company officially dealt in advanced security, biotechnology, and other expensive phrases designed to make investors feel intelligent. Unofficially, it recruited people whose bodies could survive the transition toward what authorities called new humans. Liu, deputy head of GA Security Department, approached Chen with an offer after reviewing the library incident. Training, salary, protection, answers. Chen accepted partly because he wanted strength, but mostly because he believed strength might help him discover what happened to them. That reason hit him hard when Lin brought the information. For Chen, finding Lu Ji had become a reason to transform. His best friend was changing his entire life to search for a man standing less than 2 kilometers away with 8 legs. He almost went to him that night. Then patrol drones crossed the mountain. The government still hunted Nix. Revealing that Lu Ji and Nix were connected could make Chen a target, witness, suspect, or laboratory invitation. He chose silence again. It felt less like protecting him each time, and more like cowardice wearing a reasonable explanation. The next campus incident distracted him from that guilt. Students reported a girl wandering hallways at night, elevators opening on empty floors, scratching behind walls, and something eating garbage near the women's dormitory. The last rumor sounded too ridiculous to ignore. He entered the dormitory after midnight, using invisibility, and climbed along ceiling corners, while trying not to think about how illegal his old human self would consider this. The elevator stopped on a floor nobody had selected. A dazed girl stepped out, as if sleepwalking. Something moved near the garbage area. A giant mutated cockroach crawled from the shadows. He nearly attacked, then paused. It was ugly, oversized, and spiritually altered, but it was not attacking anyone. It appeared mostly interested in decomposing food. After everything he had fought, condemning a cockroach for being disgusting felt hypocritical. He followed instead. The creature disappeared near a stairwell, where strange energy lingered faintly. Before he could investigate further, a pink-white blur shot across the hall. 9 tails flashed. The fox struck another mutated insect emerging from the darkness, freezing and shredding it before it reached the student. Behind the fox stood a young woman in sleepwear, hair messy, expression annoyed rather than frightened. She introduced herself to the confused student as Yang Yuling, a sophomore. He remained invisible above them and watched her pick up the 9-tailed fox, like an overenthusiastic owner assaulting a pillow. The fox's expression begged for legal representation. Then Yang started scolding it for sneaking out to search garbage again. So, the legendary dormitory ghost eating trash was apparently a supernatural fox with terrible habits. He had spent part of the night investigating a rumor equivalent to someone discovering their cat inside the recycling bin. Still, Yang Yuling mattered. Her spiritual signature was stronger than ordinary goo practitioners, but different, cleaner, more balanced. The fox itself felt contracted without the oppressive distortion he associated with Jiang Yuling. He did not reveal himself. Not yet. Instead, he returned to the back mountain and experimented with a new dark energy ability gained during recent growth. Dark summoning opened something resembling a tear in shadow. A skeletal creature climbed out. He stared at it. It stared back with empty sockets. Great, he thought. He was officially the kind of person who can summon skeletons. His parents would be thrilled. The summon obeyed mental commands and dissolved when dismissed. Stronger versions required more energy, suggesting skills scaled with his vitality. He tested several forms over the next nights, keeping them hidden from civilians. That practice became useful when he followed another strange trail into the city drainage system. A childlike crying sound had been reported beneath campus. No missing child report matched the location. That was warning number 1. The smell became warning numbers 2 through several hundred. He entered the sewer along the ceiling because the water below contained enough biological history to violate multiple international treaties. Rats moved in groups toward the crying. He followed them around a bend. He found a giant, pulsing tumor attached to the tunnel wall, blood vessels spreading across its uneven surface. Large larvae crawled nearby. The system detected spiritual energy. His disgust immediately became financially interested. He prepared lightning, hoping the tumor contained another meteor fragment. Then a child's voice asked, "Did you come to play with me?" A small figure stepped from behind the mass. It was vaguely human, less than a meter tall with swollen limbs, blue-black skin, a huge distorted head, and several human skulls clutched against its chest. The system identified a giant-headed weird baby, an unstable evil entity with vitality below his. That should have reassured him. It did not. Numbers tell you who is stronger. They do not tell you whether the weaker thing can stop time, steal your shadow, or turn your bones into soup. The creature smiled too widely. "Come play." He summoned 12 lightning spears above it. Its smile shrank. Good. They had established boundaries. Before attacking, he destroyed the tumor with one spear. The mass exploded into blackened flesh and exposed a sleeping mutant crocodile inside. Of course, there was a crocodile in the sewer. Urban legends had apparently unionized. The system detected spiritual energy from the crocodile as well. The weird baby screamed, "Little fish, run!" Its cry hit his mind like a hammer. Thought stopped for half a second. The crocodile woke and sprinted through the tunnel with absurd speed. He fired lightning spears after it. The weird baby screamed again. This time his mind froze nearly a full second, and the spears struck the wall instead of attack. Explosions cracked concrete. The crocodile escaped. He became furious for an embarrassingly personal reason. He hated sudden piercing noise. Spider biology had preserved that sensitivity through evolution. "You are extremely annoying," he told the creature. 4 remaining lightning spears slammed into it. Blue-purple current shredded skin and burned flesh. The weird baby began crying for its mother. That sound stopped him emotionally, even while the attack continued physically. He noticed a dark bruise around its neck, shaped like an old rope mark. A terrible possibility formed. Perhaps it had once been an abandoned infant discarded in the sewer, then transformed by meteor contamination and resentment. That did not make it safe, but it made the monster harder to hate. Its vitality dropped sharply. Then the status changed. Uncontrolled, the weird baby's body exploded. Black flesh splattered across the tunnel walls and melted into living darkness. Faces emerged from concrete. Rotting hands reached outward. Blood-colored worms erupted across the floor. The system identified the new phenomenon as worm hell, an uncontrolled evil domain. His spiritual energy began draining immediately. So much for the easy fight. He created thick layers of silk beneath and around himself, staying above the worms while blocking, reaching hands. Lightning destroyed faces and limbs, but they regenerated almost instantly. This was not a creature anymore. It was an environment trying to eat him. Explosive charms began detonating farther down the tunnel. He recognized Yang Yuling's energy before seeing her. She had followed the disturbance with her 9-tailed fox and was now trapped inside the domain too. He later learned she had originally been tracking the escaped crocodile. At the moment, he cared more about whether she knew how to break this thing. "Nix," she shouted. That was the first time she openly addressed him. The domain has a core. Destroy the core or create a stronger domain over it. He disliked both options. His strongest dark ability, Eternal Night Descends, consumed enormous energy. Wormhell was already draining that same resource. Yang activated something she called Spiritual Eye. "Above you," she shouted. "The child face is the core." He looked up. A scorched infant face appeared in the darkness watching him. The instant he focused on it, the face vanished and emerged from another wall. It could sense being targeted. That changed the problem from power to perception. He activated Eternal Night. Darkness did not merely fill the tunnel. It removed sensation for everyone inside, including Yang and her fox. Sight, sound, smell, touch, and orientation collapsed beneath primal fear. He felt the domain core stop moving. If it could not perceive him, perceiving it, it could not dodge. Yang's black gold pendant suddenly shone, protecting her and the fox from full sensory collapse. He ignored that mystery for later. Lightning concentrated through his web network and struck the stationary child face. The core disintegrated for 1 second. He expected the domain to vanish. It did not. Yang stared around and realized the trap's spiritual energy was still sustaining Wormhell even without a core. "The domain is destabilizing," she shouted. "Destroy everything before it loses control completely." He wanted to ask why that information had not been included in the first instruction. Instead, he noticed his energy reserve was nearly empty. Then warmth flowed through the air. The nine-tailed fox raised all 9 tails, sending spiritual power toward him like a living battery pack. He accepted immediately. Pride is wonderful until a sewer dimension is trying to digest you. Lightning spread through myriad change silk across the entire tunnel. Blue-purple current transformed white webbing into a glowing network. Burning faces, worms, hands, and black fluid simultaneously. Yang and the fox also got singed, despite his attempt to reduce current around them. When the domain finally collapsed, Yang's face was blackened with soot, and the formerly pink fox looked charcoal gray. He decided not to laugh. Barely. The system confirmed Wormhell had been annihilated. Near the destroyed tumor, he found another purple-tinged meteor fragment. The smell, exhaustion, and near-death experience suddenly became marginally more acceptable. Yang disappeared before he could question her. He returned to the mountain with the fragment, intending to sleep for a week. Instead, 5 tiny black spiders waited on his silk bed. The second brood had hatched. They rushed him all at once. He had survived Wormhell, only to be tackled by children. There are battles nobody prepares you for. He fed them, let them settle across his back and legs, then absorbed the meteor fragment while they slept. His vitality climbed to the maximum his species could hold. Another talent began awakening. Mysterious Realm, a form of mental power. At only 5% awakening, his consciousness could extend beyond ordinary senses and map nearly everything within 100 meters. Focused in one direction, it reached almost 200. Color, smell, texture, motion, life, sound, position. All of it arrived simultaneously without eyes or ears. For someone who had once possessed terrible spider vision, psychic perception felt like upgrading from a broken security camera to satellite surveillance. The meteor was teaching his mind to transcend the body. That should have been exciting. Instead, it scared him deeply. Instead, he remembered Wormhell, Jiang Yuling, Wang Miaoying, and every contaminated creature, showing signs of the same purple source. If evolution kept developing his mind, what exactly was he evolving toward? New Media University changed fastest at night. During daylight, students still complained about classes, cafeteria prices, club recruitment, and professors who treated attendance like a sacred oath. After midnight, the same buildings accumulated stories. Elevators opened on empty floors. Lights activated inside locked laboratories. Students dreamed identical dreams about purple rain. Someone reported footsteps running across ceilings. Most rumors were nonsense. The dangerous part was determining which ones were not. He began patrolling because the back mountain bordered campus and because his old life remained tangled with every building below. The first serious report involved a girl who entered an elevator alone and emerged 10 minutes later on a floor she never selected. Security footage showed her standing motionless inside, while the elevator stopped repeatedly between levels. No visible passenger entered. When he investigated, he found spiritual residue near the control panel. Weak, purple, familiar. That alone kept him searching. The same girl sleepwalked the following night. He followed from the ceiling, while she moved through a corridor toward the women's dormitory stairwell. Her eyes remained open. Her heartbeat stayed slow. Something was pulling her. Before she reached the stairs, a shadow moved near the garbage area. He prepared Venom Arrow. A mutated cockroach crawled into view. Large enough to trigger instinctive hatred, not large enough to explain supernatural sleepwalking. He checked its status. Contaminated? Yes. Aggressive? No. The creature was feeding on garbage and trying to avoid people. He lowered his attack. That decision would have embarrassed his human roommates who considered all cockroaches morally guilty by default. The sleepwalking girl continued. He followed. A second mutated insect dropped from a wall ahead of her. This one attacked. A pink-white fox intercepted before he could. 9 tails flashed, and Frosttooth tore the insect apart. Yang Xining appeared moments later, wearing sleep clothes and the expression of someone whose evening had been personally inconvenienced. She grabbed the fox. Yang demanded to know how many times she had warned the fox not to run away. The fox looked away. Yang sniffed, then looked toward the trash. He realized the famous dormitory rumor about a girl digging through garbage had a supernatural explanation. The fox had developed a garbage-eating habit. Yang had been caught repeatedly dragging it out. Human imagination supplied the rest. The sleepwalking student, Xia Qing, recovered enough awareness to speak. She thanked Yang, clearly uncertain whether the fox, the insect, or the pajamas deserved more attention. He stayed invisible. Sha Qiang mattered because she knew Chen Jiang. Watching her reminded him how close his human world remained. One corridor, one ceiling, one impossible conversation away. Yang walked Sha back toward her floor. He followed the residue instead. It led behind a locked service door. Inside, the trail ended at a ventilation shaft containing several dead insects. Not eaten, drained. Their bodies held trace contamination, but almost no spiritual energy. Something had harvested it. That behavior resembled him enough to make his skin crawl. He consumed spiritual energy deliberately. Was another creature doing the same, or had somebody learned to extract it mechanically? He searched the shaft for hours. Nothing. The next night, another rumor appeared. A student heard crying inside an empty lecture hall. When security opened the room, every desk had been moved to face the back wall. No person was found. He investigated before authorities could sanitize everything. The desks genuinely had moved. Purple residue covered one rear window. Outside, scratches ran down the building exterior toward the ground. Something climbed out. The tracks ended near storm drains. That clue eventually led him toward the sewer incident. But at the time, he had 2 other problems. Secret Bureau surveillance vehicles had appeared near campus, and Chen Jiang was becoming harder to hide from. He stayed late one evening after training, sitting near a bench they had used during freshman orientation. He watched from a tree. He opened their old group chat. Lu's account inactive. Hui Jun's account was silent, while Lu Ji's remained frozen in history. Chen typed a message, deleted it, typed again, then locked the phone. He almost climbed down. Then a bureau drone crossed above the courtyard. Red sensor light swept across branches. He flattened beneath leaves and suppressed his energy. Chen looked up for 1 second. He thought he saw him. He did not. The drone passed. Chen whispered, "Lu Ji, what the hell happened to you?" No joke came to mind. He stayed still until he left. That silence became harder to justify every time. Protecting Chen from his enemies made sense. Protecting himself from his reaction did not. He had become comfortable calling both choices strategy. The distinction bothered him. Later that week, Xia Qing encountered another abnormal event. A classroom door locked itself while several students remained inside. Lights went out. Something moved across the ceiling. By the time he arrived through ventilation, panic had already begun. The creature looked like a stretched human shadow, attached to no body. His system classified it as a low-level weird entity rather than a mutant animal that was new. He could not bite a shadow. Lightning affected it weakly. Silk passed through most of its body. Students could not see him clearly in darkness, which gave him freedom to experiment. He used darkest moment. The room's existing shadows distorted. His own dark energy surrounded the entity. Instead of attacking its shape, he targeted the spiritual point, anchoring it to the ceiling. Venom arrow did nothing. Lightning concentrated on the anchor worked. The shadow collapsed. The door unlocked. Students fled, believing emergency power failure caused mass hallucination. He remained behind, staring at the scorch mark. No meteor fragment. No obvious host. Another category of threat. The world was expanding faster than his vocabulary. Yang later explained that some anomalies were not mutated organisms at all. They were weird entities. Phenomena where spiritual disturbance, emotion, death, or contamination produced something closer to a rule than an animal. That explanation made worm hell easier to understand afterward. It also made cities much scarier. An animal could be fenced, but a hungry hallway could not. Yang did not know he had overheard her explaining this to Xia Qiming. She still had not formally approached him. He watched her from invisibility and studied the 9-tailed fox instead. Their connection felt different from Zhangzu contract. No forced obedience, no fear. The fox complained through body language, disobeyed constantly, and still returned to Yang willingly. That observation softened his suspicion before their pawn meeting. Not enough to accept a contract, enough to listen. The secret bureau also investigated the locked classroom. Xian Xin arrived with technical staff. He scanned the burn mark and found energy signatures outside normal mutation ranges. Zi Chen interviewed students without dismissing their stories as panic. He watched from above a ceiling panel. These people knew weird entities were real. The public did not. Again, he faced the secrecy problem. Maybe the Bureau hid information because panic would create casualties. Maybe they hid it because control was easier when ordinary people lacked context. Both could be true. Before leaving, Zichen paused beneath his hiding place. Her head tilted slightly. He stopped breathing, an unnecessary habit his human mind still performed under stress. She looked upward, then continued walking. He remained there 10 more minutes. Caution does not care whether dignity gets bored. His patrols revealed another pattern. Mutated incidents clustered around older university structures and drainage routes connected to the meteor impact zone. Not random. Energy had traveled. Water, soil, infrastructure, perhaps even people. The meteor's influence had been spreading invisibly for months before obvious mutations appeared. That possibility changed his interpretation of Jiang Yuling. She might not have been among the first exposed. She might only have been among the first to become visibly dangerous. How many students carried dormant contamination? How many would awaken suddenly? He began memorizing spiritual signatures around campus. It was impossible to track everyone. Still, the effort helped him notice Wang Miaoying's irregular presence before her disappearance became public. At first, she looked normal. Her energy did not. Purple residue pulsed faintly beneath an otherwise human signature. He followed once, she noticed. Not him. The sensation of being watched. Her pace increased. He stopped pursuit to avoid forcing panic. Later, he regretted that choice. If he had approached earlier, maybe Huijun would have lived. That maybe became one of the emotional debts he could never settle cleanly. They like to imagine every tragedy has a moment where the right choice would prevent it. Reality rarely provides proof. Only hindsight. Wang disappeared soon afterward. Then men started turning up drained. The Bureau connected the pattern. Lin connected the university history. He connected the purple signature. By then, the campus no longer felt like somewhere he was temporarily hiding near. It felt like the center of an infection whose boundaries nobody understood. And somewhere inside it, the missing human life he wanted back kept becoming more dangerous to reclaim. The next morning, he visited Baihua's pond to wash away sewer filth and recover somewhere that did not smell like civilization's digestive tract. Baihua had evolved while he was busy dying underground. She proudly circled his legs, insisting she could clean him with spiritually purified water. He agreed because it was free. 20 minutes later, he smelled less like a sewer and more like a magical snake, which was objectively an improvement. Then his new psychic perception detected Yang Xining approaching the pond again. He immediately became suspicious. Once coincidence, twice his curiosity. 3 times means either tracking or a truly catastrophic sense of personal boundaries. He ordered Baihua to hide underwater and turned invisible in the tree canopy. Yang stopped near the pond without pretending she had arrived accidentally. She removed the black gold pendant from her chest and let it float. Her voice entered his mind. Nix, or should she call him Spider Lord? He answered from concealment. Humans introduced themselves before requesting audiences with mysterious entities. She smiled and introduced herself as Yang Shining. He considered giving his real name Lu Ji, then rejected the impulse. Bai Shi. The name felt more permanent this time. Yang repeated it carefully. Then he asked the question that mattered. He asked how she kept finding him. Her spiritual eye, she explained, could remember energy traces from any unusual creature she had observed. Once she saw his energy, she could follow places he had recently passed. That ability instantly placed her high on his personal threat list. She continued before he could decide whether murder was excessive. Yang said she knew he had killed Jiang Yuling. The forest seemed quieter. She did not accuse him. Instead, she pointed out that he had repeatedly avoided killing uninvolved civilians, despite possessing enough power to cause mass casualties. Then, she said something stranger. There's something about your energy that feels familiar. He thought of the meteor. She did not explain further. Instead, she made an offer. She wanted him to become her contracted demon. His response arrived cold enough to freeze the pond. You crossed half a mountain to ask whether he wanted a new owner. She raised both hands. Equal contract, not slavery. He remained unconvinced. Yang explained, she belonged to the Nine Li sect, an old supernatural organization descended from Gu traditions, but founded by people who rejected the clan's rigid control. Nine Li practitioners form supposedly equal contracts with spirits, demons, and unusual life forms, rather than treating them as expendable goo. She promised resources, training, protection. Then she offered the one thing that almost broke his refusal. With the Nine Li's sacred artifact, he might be able to transform into human form. His thoughts stopped. Human form. Walking through campus openly, calling his parents. Sitting across from Chen Jiang's, without hiding in ventilation, ducks holding chopsticks again, instead of dissolving dinner. For several seconds, he hated Yang for discovering the exact price of his deepest desire. She sensed hesitation and pushed gently. Your evolution is extraordinary, but you're alone. With them, you could grow in a controlled direction instead of becoming something you never intended. That sentence hit harder than the promise of human shape. Because he had been wondering the same thing. Every evolution made the spider feel more natural and Luigi feel farther away. What if he eventually stopped wanting to return? What if the purple energy inside him was not helping him survive, but rewriting who he was? He almost accepted. Then memory returned. Jiang Yuling smiling while forcing blood into his body, calling permanent bondage companionship. He looked at Yang and understood that a beautiful contract remained a contract. No. Her expression showed genuine disappointment. Yang asked why. He claimed she was too weak to protect him, partly because arrogance felt safer than admitting fear, and then said he would never surrender his freedom. She listened silently. He continued. If he transformed, he would do it through his own evolution. If he became something else, that decision would also be his. That was the truth beneath everything. He could tolerate pain, ugliness, and danger. He could not tolerate ownership. Yang accepted the answer more gracefully than expected. Then he questioned her. Why was her fox digging through garbage? She stared at him. Of all possible topics, apparently that was not the one she expected from an ancient demon spider. Her nine-tailed fox, she explained, had developed a supernatural habit of searching trash after growing stronger. Students believed a girl wandered dormitories eating garbage because Yang kept chasing the fox during those incidents. He experienced a moment of profound relief. So there was no cannibal dormitory ghost, just magical pet ownership failing publicly. He asked about the sewer. Yang said she had pursued the escaped crocodile but lost its trail outside the drainage system. Then he asked about the Nine Li sect relationship with the Gu clan. Her answer opened another hidden history. Long ago, Gu practitioners who rejected bloodline restrictions and cruel ownership systems separated from the old clans. They changed contract methods, accepted outsiders, incorporated older Taoist practices, and eventually formed the Nine Li sect. The Gu clans called them traitors. Yang sounded proud of the title. More importantly, she explained why organizations like hers remained hidden. The Federal Secret Bureau existed, not rumor, not online conspiracy entertainment. A real national organization, responsible for supernatural secrecy, containment, and enforcement. Its agents included traditional practitioners, engineered new humans, genetically enhanced fighters, and mechanically augmented specialists. Ordinary government forces were only the visible layer. That explained Xing Tian. It also explained why surviving future government encounters would become much harder. Yang had answered enough questions that killing her now would have felt both unnecessary and strategically stupid. Before leaving, she offered a storage bracelet as an apology for her intrusive contract proposal. He took it with silk instead of touching it directly. Trust had not advanced that far. She explained the bracelet contained a pocket storage space and came from an ancient ruin. Ancient ruins? Another category of things nobody had mentioned during freshman orientation. He asked whether the bracelet was trapped. No. Would you tell him if it was? Yang called him difficult, and he answered that he was alive. Then her black gold pendant floated without warning. Light shot from it faster than spider senses could warn him. Unknown contract power entered his body. The system blocked it immediately. Every thread in the forest tightened. Yang's face changed. Wait. That wasn't him. He restrained her with silk before she could retreat. The nine-tailed fox attacked the web, failed to damage it, and began growling with impressive courage and unhelpful results. Yang insisted the pendant acted automatically. He did not believe her enough to release her. Instead, He used a controlled dose of mutation venom. The black gold pendant flashed again. For a moment, it resisted the transformation and restored part of Yang's consciousness. Interesting. He added another small dose. This time, the venom established a connection. Not complete domination, something closer to a seed, linking her emotions and making deliberate betrayal increasingly difficult. He questioned her while monitoring every reaction. The bracelet was genuinely safe. The pendant was the 9 Saint test relic and sometimes reacted independently to powerful potential contract targets. The sacred artifact capable of helping transformation existed, but access required approval from the sect master. Yang had not deliberately attacked him. He loosened the silk. She looked angry, embarrassed, and strangely calmer around him because of the venom connection. He told you he had trust issues. He noticed he kept the seed. She kept her freedom of movement. Neither of them pretended that arrangement was normal. Before leaving, Yang asked one question. If the 9 sect faces disaster someday, and he help you grow now, would you help them? He thought of how often every favor in the hidden world eventually produced an invoice. If your help is real, and the request is reasonable, he would consider it. She accepted. That answer created the foundation of an alliance neither of them fully trusted yet. Bai Hua surfaced after Yang left. Big sister, was that your maid? No, she smelled like you. He stared at the pond. There are moments when silence remains the strongest available weapon. Soon afterward, Lin Bingbing arrived with news serious enough to erase the humor. Wang Miaoying had disappeared. Men in the South District were turning up dead, their bodies drained until they looked decades older. The Federal Secret Bureau had entered Yang and in force, and according to Long Ji, the Gu clan had begun moving inner hall experts toward the city. 3 separate dangers, 1 city, 1 meteor mystery connecting all of them. He looked toward the university lights and felt the pressure tightening again. Somewhere among those streets, another contaminated student was losing control. This time, he intended to find her before the government. The Gu clan, or whatever, lived inside the purple light did. Before Wang Miaoying vanished, Lin Bingbing asked him for something he had expected. Since the day she accepted mutation venom, permission to settle an old debt, she did not ask for his strength. She asked him not to interfere unless she failed. That distinction mattered. Lin's past contained people who had treated her weakness as permission, and gaining power had not erased the memory of being helpless. He understood emotional debt better than most. Revenge had kept him alive inside Jiang Yuling's cage. He told Lin she could choose her own fight, but she had to survive the choice. She promised. People make excellent promises when nobody is bleeding yet. The target lived near an industrial district, where mutated incidents had increased. Lin went alone after dark. He stayed several kilometers away, tracking her through spider sense while hunting spiritually contaminated wildlife. At first, everything followed her plan. She confronted the person connected to her past, forced an admission, and refused an offered apology that arrived only after consequences became possible. Then, 2 wolf-shaped abnormal humans appeared. The first was larger than any ordinary man, shoulders bent beneath gray-black fur, jaws extended, hands reshaped into claws. The second moved almost normally until attacking, then accelerated with frightening violence. Lin's confidence disappeared fast. The stronger creature hit her through a concrete wall. He felt the shock through their connection. "Still want no interference?" he asked. Her answer came between breaths. "Give me 30 seconds." He gave her 20. She used the first 10 to change tactics. Instead of matching strength directly, she led the faster wolf through narrow industrial machinery and forced it to attack through constrained angles. She broke 1 knee. The larger wolf tore equipment apart to reach her. Lin used falling steel to trap its arm, then attacked the exposed throat. It worked. Not enough. The second creature recovered, and suddenly both were moving again. Lin's shoulder opened beneath claws. Blood loss accelerated. Her emotional signal shifted from anger to the colder realization that pride might kill her. Now she sent. He was already moving. His web reached the building before his body did, stretched through windows and caught the faster wolf around the waist. It tried cutting free. Razor silk tightened its own struggle, opened wounds. Lin immediately understood and stopped attacking that target. She focused on the larger one, while he dragged the first into darkness. Venom arrows struck the wolf's face. It screamed. The sound was human enough to make him hesitate. Then the system showed contamination patterns, similar to other unstable mutants. Not fully human, not fully voluntary. Again, the world refused to produce clean villains. He disabled rather than killed the first creature. Lin eventually crushed the second after it nearly tore through her abdomen. That one did not survive. Afterward, she sat against broken machinery, shaking from blood loss. He repaired what mutation venom could accelerate and waited beside her. She looked at the dead werewolf. He thought being stronger would make this easier. Strength makes more choices possible, he told her. It doesn't make choices easier. That became another lesson for both of them. Power did not erase human cost. It merely increased how much responsibility followed the outcome. The surviving mutant eventually returned enough to human shape for questioning. They learned the wolves were connected to a larger cluster of meteor exposure, another chain leading toward the same invisible center. No single cult, company, or family explained everything. That made the mystery worse. Soon after, another meteor fragment surfaced in a contaminated zone outside the university. He reached it first, absorbing the energy, pushed his current species beyond its limit. Evolution came violently. His body darkened until blue-purple markings looked like lightning trapped beneath black glass. The system named the new species Nether Thunder Shadow. His vitality crossed 200 and kept climbing, with later feeding. Dark affinity strengthened. Regeneration advanced. Dark summoning expanded. And a skill called Darkest Moment appeared, manipulating perception and shadow around selected targets. He no longer looked like an oversized animal. He looked like folklore. Somebody should have left fictional. That transformation also changed public reactions. Videos of Nyx had once inspired fascination. Now blurry images from security systems triggered actual fear. People argued whether he had evolved from the live stream spider or whether multiple giant spiders existed. The correct answer was somehow worse than both theories. The Federal Secret Bureau arrived in Yang'an more openly after these incidents. He learned their identities from surveillance, Yang's explanations, and later their own internal reports. Li Wang was exactly what his nickname suggested. Enormous, direct, physically terrifying, and emotionally simpler than the paperworks surrounding him. Zichen practiced traditional martial arts refined through supernatural enhancement, composed enough to make stillness feel aggressive. Jian Xin wore advanced green combat armor and possessed obsessive confidence in his weapon. Gu Yu specialized in yin spirits and battlefield manipulation, carrying a rank authority with unnerving politeness. Others rotated through support teams, containment crews, investigators, and technical divisions. For the first time, he could see the shape of the hidden government, responding to the same world he had stumbled into. They were not cartoon villains that complicated everything. They protected civilians. They killed dangerous entities. They also classified beings like him as threats first and persons second. From their perspective, that made sense. From his, it was unacceptable. He watched one secret bureau containment operation from a rooftop. A mutated boar had crashed through a market district and injured several people. Li Wang intercepted it without weapons. He caught the charging animal by its tusks, slid backwards several meters, then physically turned the creature away from a trapped family. Zhu Chen followed with precise strikes designed to disable legs instead of kill. The team evacuated civilians before finishing containment. That scene made it harder to hate them. They were doing what he would have wanted humans to do before his transformation. The real conflict was classification. If he revealed his mind, would they recognize Lu Ji, or would intelligence simply make Nyx a higher priority specimen? He was not ready to test that question. Meanwhile, the Gu clan remained active. Li reported growing internal panic. Some elders wanted him killed, others wanted capture. A third group believed he represented an unprecedented Gu species worth sacrificing dozens of people to obtain. The hidden world had managed to invent 3 flavors of bad news. He used his growing influence to disrupt their local operations, without exposing the entire network. Poison supplies vanished. Illegal cages opened overnight. Several Gu practitioners woke webbed upside down with warning marks burned into nearby walls. He did not kill everyone. That restraint became deliberate strategy. Fear works better when survivors can describe what frightened them. And it also created rumors inside the clan that Nyx understood speech, planning, and human motivations. Good. Let them wonder. The more intelligent they believed him, the less casually they would enter his territory. Then another complication arrived for his own body. The next clutch of eggs hatched. More children. This time he was prepared with separate web chambers, stored prey, and enough experience to avoid staring in existential silence for an hour. Baihua took great pride in helping. She still occasionally called them snacks by accident. The children inherited his appearance partially, but not his full talents. Their growth accelerated through venomous prey, then slowed sharply at biological limits. He tested them carefully. No poison-refining goo. No spirit-compatible body. No infinite evolutionary path. The truth produced relief and sadness together. Relief because they would not automatically become walking catastrophes. Sadness because they could never fully follow where his evolution was heading. He began seeing his own path as increasingly singular. Whatever created him had not simply produced a new species. It had produced one exception that frightened him more than being rare. Rare things happen naturally. Exceptions usually imply a reason. One night, he used psychic perception across campus and sensed someone watching one of his hidden routes. Not Secret Bureau. Not Clan. Yang Xining again. She did not approach. She simply observed from distance with the nine-tailed fox and left. Her restraint improved his opinion slightly. The fox ruined the effect by diving into a garbage bin before she could stop it. He watched Yang chase it across a dark walkway and decided supernatural dignity had limits. Later, when Yang finally explained her tracking ability at the pond, that memory made sense. At the time, it reinforced a larger realization. Everyone was searching for something. The government searched for control. Gu Clan searched for power. Yang searched for unusual beings. He searched for the truth behind the meteor. And the meteor's influence, judging by the growing number of incidents, appeared to be searching for hosts. The city felt less like a home and more like a board where unseen players were placing pieces, not his. He refused to remain one of them. That resolve mattered when Wang Miaoying became the next piece to move. He just did not know how badly. The strangest consequence of becoming stronger was not lightning, poison, invisibility, or accidentally appearing in federal briefings. It was parenthood. His spider offspring grew quickly enough that every return to the nest felt like missing several years of childhood. The oldest could hunt small prey independently. They could weave competent webs. They could recognize his mental signature from impressive distances. They could also collectively ignore instructions whenever curiosity became more interesting. Began assassinating simple territories around the mountain, not because he wanted an army, because 7 young spiders, sharing one webbed room, created a level of chaos evolution had not prepared him for. Baihua considered herself their honorary aunt. The children considered Baihua a warm, moving climbing structure. She enjoyed this arrangement until 3 tried riding her simultaneously. Baihua asked him to stop his babies. He reminded her they were family when she wanted cuddles, and only his babies when they caused trouble. She went silent. He had learned enough human parenting logic to win occasionally. The children inherited portions of his venom and physical traits, but none possessed the system's unlimited evolutionary pathway. He pushed tests carefully. Different prey controlled spiritual material, tiny amounts of contaminated tissue. Their vitality improved, then stopped at individual ceilings. No further transformation occurred. For days, he kept repeating experiments because accepting the result felt unexpectedly painful. They were healthy, strong, intelligent for their species. That should have been enough. Instead, he had assumed his path would naturally become theirs. It did not. Whatever miracle or curse shaped him was personal. He could create descendants, but not copies of his destiny. That forced another uncomfortable realization. If he eventually crossed some boundary they could not follow, what would happen to them? Would he outlive every creature that called him family? Would he become so different that their minds no longer recognized him? He had originally feared losing humanity. Now he feared losing everything he acquired afterward, too. The system offered no reassurance. It merely announced the next egg-laying cooldown. He mentally suggested several places the system could lay its own eggs. One child proved especially adventurous. He called him Little 3, only because naming every spider after poetic celestial concepts sounded exhausting. Little 3 disappeared near dusk. Spider sense confirmed he was alive, but moving beyond the safe zone. He followed immediately. His trail led downhill toward an abandoned maintenance building, where several students had recently reported scratching noises. He found Little 3 suspended beneath a window, watching 2 mutated rats fight over food. He was not in danger. He was studying them. When one rat lunged, Little 3 shifted position before the attack even redirected toward him. That was not merely instinct. It was prediction. He realized some offspring inherited different fragments of his abilities, rather than weaker copies of everything. Little Three's danger sense appeared unusually strong. Another child produced thicker silk. A third tolerated electricity better. The variations reflected natural specialization. Maybe their limits were not failures. Maybe they were simply not supposed to become him. The thought changed how he raised them. He stopped measuring every child against his status screen. He started watching what each one actually did well. That sounds obvious when applied to human children. Apparently, reincarnation as a demon spider was required before he learned basic parenting wisdom. The abandoned building contained another surprise. Behind rusted equipment, he detected faint purple spiritual residue. No meteor fragment, just traces. Someone had been there recently. Human footprints led toward the road. One set. Expensive shoes, judging by tread and wear. Longji investigated through normal channels and discovered a university employee had accessed the building repeatedly despite no maintenance assignment. The name connected indirectly to people around Jiang Yuling. Mentor-level access, possible links to investigation records. He thought immediately of the mysterious university figure Wang later described. The trail ended before he found enough proof. That frustration became useful setup. Someone inside the university had known about the purple changes before the public did. Someone might still be watching contaminated students. He increased surveillance without confronting anyone blindly. Chen noticed some of those changes from the human side. Later, through memories and reports, he learned that Chen saw unfamiliar officials appearing around campus, asking questions about missing students and restricted buildings. He assumed the investigation had finally become serious. He did not know the investigation now included him. One evening, he visited the old dorm room alone before leaving for Gaia. He sat at his former desk. Most of his personal items had been taken by family or investigators. A cheap mug remained in the cabinet because nobody wanted it. Chen laughed when he saw it. Then he stopped laughing. He sent a message to his disconnected number. Chen wrote that if Lu Ji was somehow alive, he owed Chen dinner. The message never reached a phone he could answer. Lin recovered a screenshot from a backup later. He read it more than once. There were moments when becoming human again felt like a strategic goal. That message made it hurt like a wound. He considered using an anonymous account. One sentence. Anything. But what could he say without leading surveillance toward him? Still alive would trigger questions. Telling Chen not to look would only make him search harder. Trust the giant spider sounded like the opening line of a cult recruitment email, so he stayed silent. Again, his rules protected people physically. They did nothing against loneliness. That night, he returned to the nest and found little Three asleep under his front leg. Another child had woven silk across his preferred resting corner. Baihua complained that somebody stole a fish she had saved. The scene was ridiculous. It was also home. He realized he had been treating human life and spider life as mutually exclusive futures. Maybe the real goal was not going backward. Maybe it was becoming strong enough to connect both worlds without sacrificing either. Transformation would matter. Identity would matter. Trust would matter. More than appearance. That idea stayed with him when the next crisis arrived. Wang Miaoying's name appeared in Lin's report, beside a list of drained corpses, and one of those deaths connected directly to someone he had once called family. He did not find Wang Miaoying first. The secret bureau did. What happened during her escape reached him through Lin's intercepted reports, and later memories extracted after he finally met Wang herself. By then, he understood enough to reconstruct the nightmare clearly. Wang had been an ordinary student before the meteor incident, beautiful enough to attract attention, and stubborn enough to dislike most of it. Then purple contamination changed her. Her body developed an unbearable need to absorb male life essence. If she refused too long, control weakened. If she lost control, someone died. That was how Hun became a victim. Hun had been one of his friends. He was loud, cheap when splitting restaurant bills, generous when someone actually needed money, and terrible at choosing games. Wang told him later that she had liked him. That made his death worse, not better. She had resisted the hunger until she could not. By the time consciousness returned, he was already dying. She fled instead of explaining, convinced nobody would believe a woman who said supernatural hunger made her kill someone she cared about. Afterward, Wang chose targets more carefully, mostly predatory men who approached vulnerable women with intentions. Nobody needed supernatural senses to interpret. That did not make the deaths legal. It did reveal she was still trying to preserve some moral boundary while her body demanded victims. The South District corpses attracted the secret bureau. Wang hid with an ordinary young man named Oh Yin, who initially had no idea what she was. When a government notice identified her, he panicked. He tried to leave. Her fear reacted faster than reason. She used an ability called Life and Death Pause, freezing his body's motion while his consciousness remained trapped inside. She could have killed him. Instead, she kissed him goodbye, released the ability, and ran before enforcement teams entered the building. That choice mattered later. The bureau agents waiting outside were not ordinary police. Li Wang hit like industrial equipment. Zip Chen moved with disciplined martial precision. Jin Shin wore green mechanical armor and wielded a high-frequency blade he stubbornly called a sword. Miao Ying's abilities slowed them at first. She manipulated biological motion, perception, and blood-red energy around her. Against normal people, the effect would have been overwhelming. Jian Shin's neural systems resisted much of the mental interference. He adapted, closed distance, and severed one of her hands. The Bureau had stopped treating her as a frightened student. She had become a dangerous entity marked for elimination. He learned about the fight while it was still happening. Lin had tracked the Bureau deployment and contacted him through their Venom connection. He was too far away to arrive physically before the confrontation ended. So, he used the tools he had. Lin went in. He ordered her to hide her face beneath white webbing and claim allegiance to something larger than herself. Not because he wanted worship. Because fear works faster when enemies believe the unknown threat has infrastructure. Lin reached Wang as Jian Shin prepared the final strike. A web line he controlled through spider sense redirected the blade. Lightning followed. Jian Shin's weapon shattered under the discharge. Later, footage captured his stunned voice. Jian Shin shouted that his sword had never broken. Technically, it had been a blade. He decided not to correct him during an active federal operation. Enforcement units opened fire on Lin. He formed an electrical barrier around her position, melting or deflecting incoming rounds while she reached Wang. Then a new presence entered the battlefield. Gu Yu, the Bureau's contingency plan for him. He was an A-rank keeper dressed with enough elegance to suggest ghost manipulation. Came with a formal wear requirement. Gu Yu created yin spirits directly inside defensive lines, bypassing ordinary distance. His lightning destroyed them. He formed more within the barrier. That earned his attention. Gu Yu asked whether Nix truly intended to offend the Bureau. Nix projected that Gu Yu did not bluff and let everyone nearby hear him. Attacking him required courage and accepting consequences, but his duty still required intervention. He respected that answer more than he liked it. For several exchanges, neither side fully committed. The Bureau wanted Wang. He wanted answers. Lin needed an escape route. He summoned a nightmare beast from darkness. Its arrival filled the street, with enough fear and confusion for Lin to carry the injured Wang out while he covered withdrawal. Gu Yu could have escalated. He did not. That restraint told him. The Bureau was still measuring him. Rather than committing to total war, he remembered it. Lin brought Wang to the mountain before dawn. She was missing a hand, exhausted, furious, frightened, and ready to attack anyone who approached. Then she saw him. Most people's first response to a giant demon spider is not increased confidence. Wang froze. He kept distance. Hui Jin was his friend. Her expression collapsed before he asked anything else. Wang insisted she had not meant to kill Hui Jin. He believed her remorse. He did not yet believe that excused anything, so he listened. She explained the hunger, the first loss of control, the purple light, and the way her body felt increasingly occupied by something that was still her and not her. That description felt too familiar. He asked whether Jiang Yuling had shown similar symptoms. Wang knew Jiang Yuling only indirectly, but both changed after the meteor event. Each required something different to remain stable. Jiang Yuling needed control through goo and sacrifices. Wang needed male essence. Different expressions, same purple source. Then Wang gave him the most dangerous information yet. There had been someone else around them, a mentor connected to the university, older, more knowledgeable, and far too calm about the changes. Jiang Yuling had contacts inside official investigations. Someone had helped bury information. The meteor did not merely create monsters. People were managing the aftermath from inside institutions. That became his medium-term mystery. The master question remained the meteor itself. But now he knew somebody understood more than he did. He asked Wang whether Huijun had suffered. She started crying. That was answer enough. He wanted revenge for several seconds. His front blades tightened and every instinct told him to make Hui Jun's death balance mathematically. Then he remembered Jiang Yuling. If contamination could push people toward acts they hated, simply killing every infected person would eventually make him indistinguishable from the thing he feared humans believed he was. He used mutation venom carefully, not to enslave her first, to connect deeply enough for the system to identify the foreign purple influence inside her. His poison-refining talent reacted. Something recoiled. The sensation was like biting into electricity mixed with fever. He began drawing the purple corruption out. Wang screamed. Lin stepped forward. He ordered her back. The energy fought harder than ordinary poison, resisting absorption as though it possessed primitive self-preservation. That terrified him more than raw strength ever could. Eventually, it broke. Purple light flowed into his body. Wang collapsed unconscious. Her status stabilized. The compulsive hunger weakened dramatically. He had removed something that had shaped her behavior without removing Wang herself. That proved two things. First, Hui Jun's killer had still been Wang, but not entirely Wang. Second, the same thing might be sleeping inside him. The system began another evolution before he could process either conclusion. His body contracted, then expanded. Shell split. Blood red and violet light spread through the nest. New abilities formed around the concept of a crimson moon. Blood, webs, corruption, and environmental control. When he woke, the system named his species Deep Crimson Strange Moon. He had crossed from demon classification into something stranger, an evil entity. That label stayed on his vision longer than any statistic. He tested his new abilities cautiously. Calamity Venom Rain could spread poisonous droplets across a wide area, draining vitality from exposed enemies. Demon Web Blood Sacrifice turned web networks into a feeding domain capable of drawing blood, spiritual energy, and strength back toward him. Another threat ability became nearly invisible, ghost-like, suited for control rather than obvious cutting. Most important, emotionally, a new transformation talent appeared. Flexible transformation. It did not allow full human shape. Not yet, but he could alter limb proportions, reshape parts of his body, and sense that deeper transformation might become possible through future evolution. Yang's promise was no longer his only route. That strengthened his decision to remain free. Wang woke hours later. Her missing hand had been treated by Lin and the violent hunger no longer dominated her face. She asked what he had done. He said he had removed something. When she asked whether she was cured, he admitted he did not know. Honesty frightened her, but false certainty would have been worse. He told her Hui Jun's death still mattered. He would not call her innocent merely because corruption existed. She nodded through tears. He knew that response was why he spared her. Punishment and responsibility were different things. He needed people willing to live with what they had done, not pretend power erased consequences. Wang Miaoying joined their loose network under Lin's supervision, not as a forgiven friend, as someone being given a chance to decide who she would become once the hunger stopped deciding for her. That distinction mattered to him because he was asking himself the same question. Wang Miaoying's confession changed the investigation from hunting monsters to hunting context. Someone at the university had known about the purple contamination before the public outbreak. A mentor, maybe a researcher, maybe something else. Wang could not give him a clean name. During her unstable period, memories around certain conversations felt blurred, as if details had been deliberately softened. That alone suggested influence. Jiang Yuling had also possessed contacts capable of surviving repeated police searches. Together, the clues pointed towards somebody positioned between campus, supernatural factions, and official information. He hated invisible enemies. Visible enemies at least have the courtesy to stand somewhere you can bite. Lin started with university staff records. Long Ji checked Gu Clan contacts. Yang quietly searched 9 Li references to people working in modern institutions. He searched physical locations. The abandoned maintenance building, where Little 3 found purple residue, became his first lead. He returned at night with psychic perception expanded. Human footprints had faded. Energy residue had not. A thin pattern traveled beneath the floor. He removed a panel and found a hidden cable line leading toward an older research building. Not supernatural. Ordinary fiber and power. Someone had installed surveillance outside university infrastructure. That meant planning. He followed the route through maintenance tunnels until it entered a sealed equipment room. Inside, he found empty storage cases, medical packaging, disposable gloves, and a cabinet recently cleaned too carefully. No evidence remained obvious. His system detected one thing: faint spiritual residue on a metal chair. Not enough to identify the user, enough to suggest someone abnormal had spent significant time there. He did not destroy anything. He left a single strand of nearly invisible silk across the doorway as an alarm. 3 nights later, it broke. He arrived within minutes. The room was empty. A computer had been removed. The cabinet stood open. Someone knew the location was compromised. That meant either his presence had been detected or another investigator reached the same conclusion. He checked nearby cameras. One had been physically disabled. Another showed 20 seconds of static. Professional. The hidden mentor moved from mystery to active opponent. He informed Lin not to approach university staff directly. If this person could influence Jiang Yuling and Wang, ordinary confrontation would be reckless. Wang tried helping by revisiting memories. He used their venom connection carefully, guiding her through emotional associations, rather than forcing recall. Purple light. A voice. An office. Tea she never drank. A hand wearing a dark ring. The smell of old paper and disinfectant. A phrase repeated more than once. Adaptation comes before awakening. That phrase mattered. Jiang Yuling had treated mutation as opportunity. Wang had treated it as curse. Someone else had apparently treated both as stages. He searched online academic records for similar language through Lin. Several papers used adaptation generically. Nothing conclusive. Then Longji reported a Gu elder once received anonymous information about suitable awakened carriers near New Media University. The source identity was hidden. Payment moved through intermediaries. The Gu clan had not discovered every mutated student themselves. Somebody had been feeding targets into the hidden world. That realization made him furious. If true, Jiang Yuling, Wang, and perhaps others had not merely encountered supernatural factions after mutation. They had been observed as experiments. He thought of the campus disappearances. Liu Him, Huijin. How many ordinary lives had become acceptable data points? His original revenge had focused on Jiang Yuling because she held the knife. Now he wondered who built the table. The investigation produced no immediate name. That frustration was important. Power had trained him to expect solvable problems. Find enemy, analyze attack, win. Information did not behave that way. Sometimes the correct move was waiting. He hated waiting. So he created a trap. Lin leaked a false rumor through channels known to reach Gu intermediaries. A new student had shown purple symptoms and hidden near the old research building. They monitored every response. Gu clan interest appeared within hours. A private security contractor checked the building. Then a university account accessed restricted records from an administrative terminal. The user left before he arrived, but the access pattern gave them a department, not a person. Progress. That same night, his silk alarm triggered inside the sealed equipment room. He moved through ventilation silently. Someone stood near the chair. Tall human silhouette, face hidden beneath a simple mask. No obvious Gu. No visible mechanical augmentation. The system display flickered when he tried reading vitality. Flickered. That had never happened with an ordinary person. He stayed invisible. The stranger spoke anyway. Nix. Every leg tightened. The stranger knew he was there and asked whether he preferred Bai Ji. That was worse. Very few people knew the second name. Yang Baihua, Lin Bingbing, Wang Miaoying, and Long Ji all knew it. The stranger knew enough to be dangerous. He prepared lightning. He placed one hand on the chair. You're growing faster than expected. The wording confirmed the worst possibility. Expected. He attacked, not to kill, to stop escape. Ghost thread crossed the room. The stranger moved before it arrived. No visible speed. One moment beside the chair, the next beside the door. His psychic perception registered both positions almost simultaneously. A spatial technique. He closed exits with silk. Dark energy filled the room. The figure chuckled softly. Good. You learned caution. Then the lights died. His psychic perception remained. The person disappeared anyway. No movement. No hidden path. Gone. He found one object left on the chair. A small piece of ordinary black stone. No spiritual energy. No writing. Nothing. Maybe mockery. Maybe message. Maybe distraction. He wanted to crush it. Instead, he stored it. Evidence matters, even when evidence looks useless. When he told Yang what happened, her expression became serious. 9 Li techniques could imitate short spatial movement, she said. But disappearing from psychic perceptions entirely required far more. The secret bureau possessed similar technology. High-level Gu elders possessed stranger methods. The clue did not narrow the field. Excellent. Mysteries apparently scale with frustration. Wang reacted differently. When he described the stranger's voice, she went still. That feels familiar. Not recognition. Fear. Her body remembered what her conscious mind could not. He ended the conversation immediately. Forcing deeper recall risked destabilizing the recovery they had achieved. That choice cost information. He accepted the cost. People were not evidence containers. That principle separated his network from the organizations he hated. The hidden mentor remained unresolved when the government assault began, but the encounter changed his master mystery permanently. Somebody knew Baiji. Somebody expected his growth. Somebody had watched the purple contamination before he understood it existed. Maybe the meteor chose him. Maybe someone chose where the meteor's influence would land. Either way, he was no longer chasing only the origin of his transformation. He was chasing the intelligence around it. And that intelligence had just proven it could find him whenever it wanted. Longji delivered the final warning 12 hours before the mountain operation. A government and Gu clan channels were moving at the same time. That coordination had never happened before. The target could only be him. He looked around the nest after receiving the message. Sweb chambers, stored food, spent meteor fragments, sleeping children, and Bai Hua arguing with a juvenile over a fish made this place home. Jiang Yuling's cage had taught him freedom. The mountain taught him ownership in a different sense. Not ownership of people, responsibility for a place where people depended on him. He could not defend that place safely against a national operation. So, he decided to abandon it before they forced the decision. The children resisted evacuation because they did not understand the scale of danger. Their minds carried simple images. Home safe, parents strong, enemy bad. He wished reality remained that clean. He sent older offspring through separate tunnels toward fallback nests, prepared weeks earlier. Younger ones traveled inside reinforced silk carriers. Bai Hua volunteered to escort them. Good. Then she returned 20 minutes later. Bad. He had told her to stay with them. She said. The children had reached the pond. He told her to stay there, but she had come back, which he could plainly see. She wrapped around one of his legs and stated that he would fight. It was not a question. He did not answer. Her voice became smaller, as she noted that her big sisters always sent everyone away before fighting. That observation hurt because it was true. He had built his identity around protecting freedom, while repeatedly deciding other people's risks for them. Sometimes necessary, still contradictory. He told Bai Hua he needed her alive. She answered that she needed him alive too. There was no clever reply, so he compromised. She could stay nearby until the barrier formed. Then she had to retreat. She agreed far too quickly. He should have known. Lin Bingbing was worse. She arrived carrying weapons, medical supplies, and the determined expression of someone prepared to ignore every instruction. He refused before Lin Bingbing finished speaking. She crossed her arms and listed every fight she had already survived. He explained that the operation was designed around killing him, and that anyone nearby would become collateral. Her jaw tightened. Then don't stand alone. Her answer hit the same vulnerable place Bai Hua had found. He understood their anger. He also understood Heaven Punisher-level resources could erase Lin before he reached her. Leadership becomes ugly when every choice harms someone. He forced the order through their connection gently at first. Lin resisted. Pain began. He stopped before it intensified. Then he explained rather than commanded. If she stayed, he would spend every second tracking her and fight worse. Her bravery would make him weaker. She looked away. That argument succeeded, not because she feared death, because she refused to become his vulnerability. Come back, she said. He said he planned to return. Lin answered that a plan was not a promise. No. She hated the answer. It was still the most honest one. Wang Miaoying left with Lin. Before going, she asked whether she could use life-and-death pause on attackers if the battle reached civilian areas. Protect people first. He told her that even after everything, he trusted her with that choice. That trust visibly affected her. Perhaps redemption begins when someone gives you responsibility before you feel you deserve it. Long Ji could not disappear without alerting the Gu clan. He ordered him to remain with their support network and avoid direct combat if possible. His assignment was intelligence, not martyrdom. He laughed nervously. Longji called him strangely protective for a demon. He called Longji strangely talkative for an employee. So Longji stopped requesting benefits. He shut up. The joke covered the fact that they both knew his position could expose him. He checked his parents from a distance one final time through information Lin had obtained. They were alive, still grieving, still accepting official statements about his death. Because ordinary people cannot fight classified reality. He did not approach. He recorded a message instead. Not to send, just to have. He began by telling his parents that he was alive. He stopped, deleted it, tried again. Nothing sounded believable. Nothing sounded kind. How do you explain survival when survival turned you into the thing on national emergency broadcasts? He stored no message. Maybe cowardice, maybe mercy. He promised himself he would speak, only when he could offer them more than another reason to fear. The mountain darkened toward evening. Birds left early. His psychic perception caught distant human movement. Vehicles stopped beyond normal trails. Drones rose. Goo creatures entered from another direction. The operation was beginning. He moved through every chamber once more. The empty nest felt enormous without children. He remembered building the first tiny tree shelter after escaping Jiang Yuling. He remembered 3 eggs and Bai Hua's voice. Lin's first transformation. Long Ji's terrified questions. The mountain contained months of becoming somebody new. He touched one web anchor gently. Then he cut the evacuation line behind him. If enemies traced the main nest, they would find no path toward his family. He climbed toward the highest point. The temperature dropped. Frost appeared on leaves. The Gu clan's Ice Soul Cold Jiao was approaching. At the same time, secret bureau signatures surrounded the mountain. Old supernatural power from one side, modern state power from the other. For once, everyone agreed on something. He was the problem. He unfolded his web network across the ridge and waited. Fear remained. Good. Fear meant Lu Ji was still inside the thing they had come to hunt. Then the first barrier sealed the mountain, and he stopped thinking about escape. Chen Jiang left New Media University soon afterward. Gaia Technology accepted him into a formal trial program, and his last day on campus carried more grief than he admitted. He learned the details later through information Lin collected, and eventually memories he accessed during the battle that changed everything. Shang asked whether he would return. Chen joked that Gaia paid too well to miss cafeteria food. Neither of them laughed much. Their old group had been reduced by disappearance, death, and secrets. Lu was dead. Wei Jin was dead. He was officially dead. Chen was leaving. Normal college life had collapsed without anyone noticing the exact moment it stopped being normal. At Gaia Technology, investigator Lu questioned Chen about him. Investigators had recovered old messages between Chen and Lu Ji from a burner phone connected to the disappearance case. They also found biological remains near a burned section of the back mountain. Human, tissue, genetic evidence associated with Lu Ji, enough for authorities to conclude he had died. Chen knew that conclusion was incomplete. He had contacted him after becoming Nix, carefully hiding his identity, but revealing knowledge nobody else should possess. He could not explain that without exposing himself. Investigator Lu offered another theory. Nix might have killed Lu Ji and absorbed memories. That possibility devastated Chen. He understood why when he learned it later. From his perspective, the monstrous spider he had trusted might be walking around wearing pieces of his dead friend's mind. The irony was brutal. He was hiding his identity to protect him. His silence was making him imagine something worse. He nearly contacted him that night. Then Long sent an emergency warning. The Gu clan was no longer sending scouts. They were preparing a coordinated operation with government forces. His fight around Wang Miaoying had convinced the Secret Bureau that his influence was expanding. The Gu clan wanted revenge and capture. Government wanted containment. Both now knew roughly where he lived. The mountain nest had become a target. He ordered Lin Bingbing to leave. She refused. He ordered again through the venom connection strongly enough that refusal became physically painful. She looked furious. "You're doing exactly what you said you wouldn't." That accusation hit. He said he would not treat Lin Bingbing like equipment. He was not sending equipment away. He was sending someone he did not want killed. She stopped arguing, not because she agreed, because she understood. Wang Miaoying left with her. He moved Bai Hua and the youngest spider children into deeper hidden routes before the operation began. Bai Hua tried to remain. He threatened to wrap her inside a silk bundle and throw her into the pond. She called that rude. He called it parenting. The oldest spider offspring scattered through predefined hiding routes. They had become strong enough to survive independently for short periods, but still lacked his unique evolutionary constitution. Their growth eventually reached biological limits. That discovery hurt. He had assumed his children would keep evolving like him. They could not. The system's core talents belonged specifically to him. Another reminder that whatever had happened during his rebirth was not simple inheritance. By sunset, the mountain became unnaturally quiet. Animals fled. Air pressure changed. A barrier rose around the area. The assault had begun. He climbed toward the highest web anchor and watched human silhouettes advancing through mist. Secret bureau agents, armed enforcement teams, goo practitioners, mechanized combat units. They had combined old magic, modern weapons, and national resources for one target. Him. For the first time, he truly understood what becoming famous as a monster meant. Monsters did not get applause. They got budget approval. He recognized Li Wang, Chen, Jian Xin, and Gu Yu from Wang Miaoying's rescue. Other presences were stronger. One of them carried cold so intense frost formed across vegetation before he entered sight. Long Binghong, an inner hall Gu elder. Beside him moved a massive ice soul cold Jiao, a dragon-like serpent whose vitality reading exceeded anything he had fought conventionally. Another agent registered near the top of the human group, with vitality around 250 and tightly trolled energy. The humans were not underestimating him this time. Good. Underestimation creates sloppy fights. Respect creates terrifying ones. Long Binghong demanded he surrender. He answered by summoning darkness. Skeleton warriors emerged. A minotaur stepped from a shadow gate. Werewolf-like creatures followed. The nightmare beast appeared last, spreading fear through the front ranks. He did not expect summons to win. He needed them to disrupt formation. Rifle fire began immediately. The mountain erupted. Summons absorbed the first waves, while his silk lines pulled attackers off balance, redirected weapons, and separated Gu practitioners from handlers. Guyu formed yin spirits. Zichen shattered skeletons with precise martial strikes. Li Wang physically wrestled the Minotaur like both had personally insulted each other's mothers. Jian Xin's replacement blade stayed farther from his lightning. Learning had occurred on both sides. Then the Sisal Cold Jiao moved. Cold swept across the battlefield. Webs froze. Trees cracked. Several dark summons became brittle statues. Long Binghong attacked through the creature, using its frost field to deny his usual mobility. He launched lightning spears. Ice barriers redirected part of the strike. The remaining current hurt the Cold Jiao but did not stop it. Its tail hit him through 2 layers of silk and launched his body across the mountain. He recovered before landing, caught a tree with webbing and swung around its trunk. The Cold Jiao followed. He activated Calamity Venom Rain. Dark droplets spread through the air. Ordinary fighters retreated or raised protection. The Cold Jiao remained inside the rain, frost freezing some poison before contact. It was built to fight things like him, so he stopped fighting it like a range monster. He moved in. His body crossed between ice spikes, taking shallow cuts while ghost threads wrapped the Jiao's limbs. It broke them. He added thicker silk. It broke that too. Long Binghong laughed. He let him. Each broken strand left residue. Each wound from his blades carried poison. Each second inside his blood web domain gave him more information about the creature's circulation and energy flow. When the Cold Jiao bit through his side, he allowed the teeth to stay. Then he anchored every prepared web at once. The serpent's head stopped for the first time. Long Binghong's expression changed. He drove both front blades through the softer tissue beneath the jaw and bit deep. Blood and spiritual power surged through his fangs. The Cold Jiao thrashed. Frost exploded outward. His shell cracked, he held on. Demon web blood sacrifice activated. Every strand touching the serpent became a channel. Its vitality began feeding his. Long Binghong triggered a formation to pull the Cold Jiao away. Space distorted. The creature vanished before he could finish it. He screamed internally. Not because it escaped, because teleportation had now entered the enemy toolkit. Long Binghong retreated with the injured beast, believing distance made him safe. He had forgotten the web lines crossing the mountain. One thread still touched his sleeve. He pulled. He stumbled. Ghost thread wrapped his ankle and wrist before he completed another seal. Blood sacrifice activated through the line. His face changed as energy drained. He told the elder that he would not kill him. Relief flashed for half a second before Nix added that the web would. He admitted that was petty. He had come to dissect him. He allowed himself one line. Long Binghong died inside his own formation field, and his remaining goo creatures lost coordination. That should have been the major payoff. Instead, every sensor on the battlefield reacted to something approaching from outside the barrier. The human formation opened. A new combat body entered. No exposed flesh. No hesitation. Microscopic metallic organisms flowed across its surface like living armor. The Secret Bureau called it the Heaven Punisher. His system provided no comforting explanation, only danger. The fight had just changed categories. The Heaven Punisher walked through his calamity venom rain without slowing. Drops touched its body, hissed, and disappeared beneath shifting metallic grains that repaired damage almost as quickly as poison created it. Nanomachines. He did not know the exact engineering at the time, but instinct recognized the important part. Touching that thing was a terrible idea. The Secret Bureau pulled ordinary agents farther back. That told him they understood the same problem. Heaven Punisher accelerated. He fired 6 lightning spears. Its arms expanded into dark shields, absorbing the first 2 impacts before the metal surface began glowing. The third spear tore through. Nanomachines scattered like black sand and immediately flowed back together. The fourth struck its shoulder. The fifth missed because it changed direction without losing momentum. The sixth reached its chest and actually forced 1 step backward. 1 step. His previous strongest enemies had reconsidered their life choices after less. Heaven Punisher answered with a fist. He avoided direct contact by swinging upward on silk, but the shock wave alone shredded nearby webbing and broke branches across several trees. The battlefield had stopped looking like a mountain. It looked like a disaster report waiting for wording approval. Dark summons rushed the machine. The Minotaur swung an enormous axe. Heaven Punisher caught the weapon bare-handed. Nanomachines flowed across the blade and began eating the material itself. The Minotaur released it immediately. Smart summon. The axe vanished into metallic dust within seconds. He suddenly appreciated why even powerful Secret Bureau agents kept their distance. His blade legs could cut tanks. Against those nanites, touching the wrong surface might simply donate his limbs to science. He changed tons entirely to ranged attacks. Lightning spears, poison rain, web traps carrying current, venom arrows, dark summons used as moving obstacles. Heaven Punisher advanced through all of it, not unharmed, but relentlessly. Every destroyed layer of nanomachines exposed another. Every time he forced it to rebuild, he spent more spiritual energy than it seemed to spend. That imbalance became the real threat. A long fight favored the machine. He needed a decisive attack before exhaustion turned strategy into optimism. He formed a concentrated lightning spear, far larger than previous ones, compressing enough current to make the air crack around it. Heaven Punisher raised both arms. He changed trajectory at the last moment. The spear struck the ground beneath it. Rock exploded. The machine dropped into the crater. Myriad change silt collapsed from every direction, forming layer after layer over the opening. Then, he sent electricity through all of it. The crater became a blue-white furnace. For 3 breaths, nothing emerged. Secret Bureau agents watched. He watched. Even the mountains seemed to wait. Then a black hand punched through the web. Heaven Punisher climbed out with half its outer body destroyed. The missing sections were already rebuilding. He had found the ceiling of his current firepower. It had not been high enough. Something else moved behind the Bureau lines. Xing Tian. The combat asset he had fought beside at the containment base now approached under federal coordination. Whether he was reinforcement or another independent weapon barely mattered. 2 monsters built by humanity stood between him and escape. He looked toward the hidden routes where his children had fled. Good. They were far enough away. That meant he could stop conserving terrain. Eternal night descends. Darkness swallowed the mountain. Human senses collapsed. Even enhanced operatives stumbled before emergency systems activated. The Heaven Punisher kept moving. Of course, it did. Sensors replaced what biological perception lost. He used the darkness to reposition, webbing across cliffs and high trees while projecting false movement through summoned creatures. Lightning flashed from changing angles. Heaven Punisher followed patterns instead of sight. He broke the patterns. Sometimes he attacked. Sometimes he let summons attack. Sometimes he did nothing and allowed it to commit toward empty space. Slowly, damage accumulated. For the first time, he felt himself thinking faster than fear. This was not Jiang Yuling's captive fighting for one desperate opening. This was a predator controlling an entire battlefield. The realization lasted until Heaven Punisher adapted again. Its nanomachines spread outward into the soil and across web anchors. His network started disappearing, not breaking, being consumed. The machine was eating his battlefield. He pulled silk back before the contamination reached central lines. Too late. Black metallic dust traveled faster than expected. One connected strand touched his rear leg. Pain arrived after the damage. Armor vanished. Flesh disappeared beneath crawling particles. He severed the leg instantly. The nanomachines continued consuming the detached limb until nothing recognizable remained. That sight produced a colder fear than any venomous monster. If those things reached his main body deeply enough, regeneration might never get the chance to start. He increased distance. Xingtian entered from the side. A heavy strike destroyed one of his escape trees. He launched upward. Government drones entered the dark zone with specialized guidance. Missiles followed. He redirected one with silk. Another exploded close enough to burn his abdomen. A third was intercepted by his lightning. Pressure stacked faster than he could resolve it. Machine, agents, weapons, energy loss, nanites. Every solution created another problem. Then the ice soul cold Jiao returned. Long Bingheng was dead, but another handler had stabilized the creature. Its frost field spread beneath him. The government had built the exact kind of layered assault. It was exactly the kind of layered assault that sound survival tactics recommended. Never give the target time to breathe. He landed on frozen rock. Heaven Punisher appeared ahead. Xingtian closed behind. The cold Jiao attacked from the side. He laughed once inside his own mind. Not because anything was funny. Because sometimes reality becomes so unfair. His nervous system filed sarcasm instead of panic. He summoned everything available. Skeleton King, Nightmare Beast, werewolves, dark plants, shadow creatures whose names he never bothered learning because most died within 30 seconds. They bought seconds. Seconds became movement. Movement became survival. He struck the cold Jiao with calamity venom rain while webbing Xingtian's joints and concentrating lightning against Heaven Punisher's damaged chest. 3 different battles, one mind. His psychic perception expanded under stress, feeding positions faster than ordinary senses ever could. For a few brilliant moments it worked. The Jiao retreated. Xingtian tore through silk but slowed. Heaven Punisher lost another section of armor. Then the nanomachines changed behavior. They launched. A black cloud crossed the gap. He formed an electrical barrier. Most particles burned. Enough survived. They landed across his front legs and thorax. He tried cutting away infected tissue. The cloud spread faster. Millions of microscopic machines began dismantling him from the outside inward. Regeneration activated. Nanites consumed the new flesh. Regeneration replaced it again. The result became a grotesque stalemate powered by his shrinking energy reserves. He fled uphill. The machines followed inside him. Every movement cost more. His body became lighter in the worst possible way. He sent a mental order toward Baihua. Stay away. No response. That terrified him. Then her voice arrived. Baihua finally answered that she was coming. He ordered her to turn back, threatening to throw her into another province, and then launch himself after her. He nearly screamed. The little snake appeared through shattered trees. Moments later, glowing with clean spiritual water, she rushed directly toward him. He tried driving her away with pressure. She kept coming. Her purification slowed some damage, but could not remove nanomachines. She wrapped around part of his body anyway. He ordered Baihua to leave, but she refused because he would die, so that single word struck deeper than any weapon. She did not say it heroically. She sounded confused that death beside him should somehow be worse than leaving him alone. He realized then how completely Baihua had chosen him as family. Not because of venom, not because of power, because somewhere between pawn conversations and terrible decisions, he had become her person. He could not force her away without hurting her. He did not have enough strength left to do it gently. So they remained together. Heaven Punisher approached. The secret bureau agents kept distance, likely waiting for his regeneration to fail. His body collapsed beneath him. Nanomachines had eaten through multiple legs. Lightning flickered weakly. Spiritual energy neared zero. The sixth issued repeated vitality warnings. He thought about his parents again, always at the edge of death. The same faces, his mother complaining that he never called enough. His father pretending not to worry about tuition while calculating expenses after dinner. Chen Jiang laughing. Lu stealing his charger. Hui Jun arguing about games. Lin trying to become stronger. Wang crying over someone she killed. His children asleep in web tunnels. Baihua wrapped around him, refusing to leave. He did not want to die as Nix. That thought surprised him. Earlier, he had always framed survival as a path back to Luji. Now, he also did not want Nix to end. Both identities mattered. Maybe that was the real transformation. Not choosing human or monster, choosing that every part of his life belonged to him. Something purple moved inside his consciousness. The same color as the meteor. The same color behind Wang Miaoying's mutation. The same corruption he had removed from Wang Miaoying. He had assumed his poison refining talent kept it harmless. He was wrong. It had been sleeping, waiting. A feminine voice appeared somewhere beyond the system. Do not be assimilated. He could not tell whether he heard words, remembered them, or invented them under stress. Then purple light erupted. The nanomachine stopped, not slowed, stopped. Every particle touching his body hung in place, as if reality had forgotten the next instruction. Heaven Punisher froze mid-step. The battlefield fell silent. The secret bureau agents looked upward. He did too. The sky had changed. A deep crimson moon-like projection formed behind layers of purple darkness. Though the actual moon remained elsewhere, his ruined body began rebuilding. Not through ordinary regeneration. Matter folded toward him from directions he could not perceive. Flesh reassembled around patterns that felt older than biology. New legs formed. His shell returned. Bai Hua stared at him through the glow. Trembling, he wanted to reassure her. He could barely recognize his own thoughts. The purple force offered power with terrifying ease. All he needed to do was stop resisting. Let it fill the gaps. Let it decide the shape. Let it become the part of him exhausted from fighting. That was the true danger, not death. Assimilation. He remembered Jiang Yuling during her unstable transformation. Scarlet eyes lost control. Power replacing personhood. He pushed back. His system reacted with poison-refining goo, filtering the purple energy instead of rejecting it completely. The force changed. Enough remained his to use. Enough foreign influence stayed outside his core. He stood. The secret bureau's instruments screamed a warning. Heaven Punisher resumed movement. He looked at it and felt no fear. That frightened him more than the machine. A blood-red beam descended from the strange moon projection. It struck the battlefield. Space distorted. Nanomachines vanished where the beam passed. Not burned or shattered, but removed from the interaction entirely. Heaven Punisher lost most of its body in one strike. Far overhead, another weapon approached through clouds. He sensed it before seeing it. Something strategic. Something human command believed necessary. After witnessing the purple event, the projectile entered his psychic field. Then stopped. Simply stopped in empty air. No web, no lightning, no physical contact. For several impossible seconds, it remained suspended while everyone watched. He did not consciously know how he was doing it. That terrified him. The projectile twisted away and detonated far beyond the mountain. Shock waves rolled through the clouds. The Bureau forces began retreating. Not tactically, instinctively. Even Guyu's calm expression finally broke. He wanted to chase them. The purple force inside him wanted something worse. Consume. Expand. Pull every living source of energy into the crimson web. He forced the impulse down. That decision nearly knocked him unconscious. Power disappeared as suddenly as it had arrived. The false moon faded. Purple darkness withdrew inside him. His body remained restored, but exhaustion hit like gravity multiplying. He collapsed. Bai Hua immediately wrapped around his front leg. Bai Hua sobbed with relief that Nix was alive. She began crying through their connection. He did not tease her. The mountain burned around them. Human forces withdrew. His nest was destroyed. Several summons had vanished permanently. His children were scattered. He had survived, but the cost was no longer abstract. That night ended the illusion that he could remain hidden near campus forever. The government now knew he could become something beyond their current containment systems. He now knew something inside him could become something beyond him. Both sides had reasons to fear the next encounter. He spent the remaining strength locating his children. One by one, their spider sense answered from hidden routes, all alive. Only then did he allow himself to stop moving. Recovery took 7 days. Physically, his body repaired faster. Spiritually, he felt as though someone had dragged his consciousness across broken glass. He moved everyone away from the destroyed mountain zone before sleeping deeply. Lin arranged temporary shelters. Wang watched the children. Bai Hua refused to leave his side longer than necessary. Yang Xining appeared after the battle and looked at him with a mixture of concern, fascination, and question since he had no energy to answer. She offered 9 Li protection again. This time he did not reject the location. The contract was still impossible. Sanctuary was not. Before leaving Yong'an, he used a strange new instinct awakened during the battle. World Web, the name came without explanation. Threads of information seemed to connect minds, memories, places, and space itself. For a brief period, he could touch another consciousness and understand far more than ordinary psychic perception should allow. He used it on unconscious Xinjiang after locating him near Gaia personnel. Responding to the mountain disaster, he did not harm him. He read enough to understand what had happened since his disappearance. The result hurt. Chen believed he might be dead. He feared Nix might have devoured his memories. Authorities had recovered human remains and declared Lu Ji's legal death essentially settled. His own best friend had defended a monster without knowing whether that monster killed him. He wanted to wake him, tell him everything. Instead, he touched one memory gently. A night in their dorm when Liu had fallen asleep during a game, and Chen drew a mustache on his face. He left the memory brighter, a silent promise someday. Then, World Web gave him the location Yang had described. 9 Li Cave Heaven, a hidden space more than 1,000 kilometers from Yongan, concealed in mountains beyond ordinary perception. He created a spatial connection without understanding how that ability should have required years of study. It appeared because the Purple Awakening had shown his mind a structure it somehow remembered. Yang agreed to guide them. They crossed. One moment, ruined mountain air smelled of smoke. The next dense spiritual energy surrounded him beneath unfamiliar sky and ancient terrain. He nearly collapsed immediately. 9 Li practitioners who saw his 2-meter demon spider body reacted with admirable restraint. Most merely stopped breathing for several seconds. Yang introduced him as a guest. Nobody challenged the wording, while his residual pressure filled the courtyard. He received a secluded residence large enough to accommodate his body. Bai Hua chose the nearest water source. Lin and Wang remained outside initially to manage their network and monitor Yungan. The spider children were distributed between safe hidden spaces and trusted guardians. For the first time since Jiang Yuling's cage, he entered a place where hiding his existence was not necessary. That freedom felt strange. He slept 4 days, woke briefly, built a protective web around the room, spoke with Yang, then slept another 3. 7 days vanished. When he finally woke properly, his body felt stable. His mind did not. Every time he remembered the Crimson Moon, he felt 2 reactions simultaneously. Power, fear. He had wanted strength because strength meant nobody could own him. Now his greatest threat might be the strength inside him. He checked his status. Vitality had climbed near 700. Several abilities had changed after the battle. World Web remained available, but mysterious. His psychic talent continued awakening. Flexible transformation persisted. The purple influence registered nowhere obvious. That absence worried him most. He began cultivating inside 9 Li Cave Heaven because the environment contained spiritual energy far denser than Yongan. Hours of focused absorption finally pushed vitality from 699 to 700. He stared at the number. That's it. Yang, who had spent years watching practitioners celebrate tiny breakthroughs, looked at him like she wanted to throw furniture. Apparently, his definition of slow progress needed recalibration. He explored the sect carefully. 9 Li Cave Heaven functioned as both sanctuary and training ground filled with contracted spirits, practitioners, transformed demons, and old architecture layered across generations. Many powerful elders were not human by birth. Some had cultivated long enough to transform. That immediately revived his interest in human shape. He began asking questions so casually that Yang noticed within minutes. She reminded him that he had called transformation unimportant, and he answered that it was not important enough to surrender freedom. She called that a different claim, and smiled like someone catching him stealing dessert after claiming not to like sweets. Transformation remained possible without her contract that mattered. For once, hope did not arrive with a collar attached to it. He met Yi Chuyang through one of these conversations. He was an experienced 9 Li practitioner, recently returned after years away, confident in the manner of someone accustomed to surviving hidden world politics. Then he introduced spider descendants, 3 of them, large, intelligent, very interested in him. He looked at Yang. She looked innocent. Bai Hua looked delighted. Bai Hua announced that her big sister had suitors. He considered returning to Yongan and fighting Heaven Punisher again, while Yi Chuyang explained that the young spider demons admired his aura and bloodline. Nix warned Yi Chuyang that bringing those descendants near him again without notice would make their next meeting considerably bloodier. Yi Chuyang understood. Bai Hua did not stop laughing for the rest of the day. Life inside 9 Li had moments like that. Briefly normal, almost comfortable. Then the larger world reminded him why hidden organizations existed. Yang reported increasing strange events across the Federation. Meteor-related contamination was accelerating. Secret bureau deployments multiplied. Old supernatural factions were becoming more active. Ancient ruins showed new fluctuations. The same pattern appeared everywhere. Something dormant was waking. He asked whether Nine Li records mentioned a similar event. She said yes. A century earlier, Nine Li Cave Heaven suffered a catastrophe remembered as the Great Pollution. The previous sect leadership had been devastated. The details remained restricted. The phrase Great Pollution felt uncomfortably compatible with the purple influence he had seen. He wanted access to the records. Yang could not grant it without higher approval. Conveniently, the sectmaster was about to emerge from seclusion after more than 3 years. That announcement changed the entire atmosphere. Disciples cleaned ceremonial spaces. Elders returned from distant posts. Protectors gathered. Even Yi Chuyang became serious. He asked Yang what kind of person the sectmaster was. She said powerful, then added unpredictable, when he called that description useless. Yang warned him not to test his regeneration by insulting the sectmaster. He took the advice under consideration. His biggest hope remained the sacred artifact, connected to transformation. His biggest concern was whether Nine Li's leader would see him as guest, resource, threat, or opportunity. His biggest mystery remained the purple source. Then all three collided at the sect gathering. After his recovery stabilized, Yang began introducing him to Nine Li Cave Heaven beyond the guest residence, and calling it a hidden sect felt inadequate. It was closer to a small civilization folded away from ordinary geography. Mountains surrounded old halls. Streams carried spiritual energy. Contracted creatures moved openly beside humans without causing screams, traffic jams, or emergency hashtags. For the first time, he could travel without invisibility. People still stared. He was a nearly 2-meter supernatural spider. Pretending otherwise would require unreasonable optimism. But nobody reached for guns. Nobody called containment teams. Nobody asked whether he belonged in a laboratory. That absence of immediate hostility felt almost luxurious. It also made him cautious. Comfort is dangerous when you have spent long enough surviving. The sect included humans, transformed demons, contracted spirits, and practitioners from bloodlines he did not recognize. Some elders had once been animals. That fact grabbed his attention immediately. He asked Yang how transformation worked. She smiled. You said you didn't care about human form. He reminded Yang that she was too weak to own him, and said both statements remained true. She rolled her eyes. Transformation, she explained, depended on species, cultivation, spiritual resources, and sometimes powerful artifacts. Some demons could eventually maintain human bodies naturally. Others required assistance. His flexible transformation talent might shorten the process dramatically. That answer produced hope he refused to display too openly. If he could return to a human-shaped body without surrendering autonomy, he could eventually face his parents in Xinjiang on his own terms. The problem was recognition. Even if he looked human, Lu Ji was legally dead. Returning with the same face would trigger an entirely new disaster. He needed answers, identity control, and enough power to survive bureaucracy. The last requirement sounded absurd until remembering the secret bureau had attacked him with Heaven Punisher. Paperwork might genuinely be the safer threat. Nine Li's library contained histories unavailable outside. Yang could not grant access to the deepest records, but she showed him general texts about supernatural decline and modern revival. Spiritual energy had weakened over generations in the outside world. Hidden realms preserved denser concentrations. That explained why ancient supernatural traditions survived here while ordinary society forgot most of them. Then meteor events began changing the balance. Mutations increased, dormant anomalies woke. Old sealed locations showed activity. Ruins reopened. The world was not simply becoming stranger. It was becoming strange again. That distinction mattered. If supernatural activity had existed before modern decline, then the meteor might not be introducing something new. It might be reconnecting something old. He asked about the Great Pollution. Yang became less playful. The event occurred roughly a century earlier inside Nine Li Cave Heaven and devastated the sect severely enough to destabilize leadership for years. Records available to ordinary disciples were vague. Contamination, loss of control, unnatural transformation, sealed zones, deaths. Those phrases felt painfully familiar. He asked whether purple light appeared. Yang did not know. Higher archives might. The sect master controlled access. So his interest in the coming emergence became more than curiosity about transformation. The person leaving seclusion might know whether his rebirth belonged to a century-old pattern. He met Jiang Wei during preparations for the sect gathering. She had managed significant responsibilities, while the sect master remained secluded and carried authority without needing to advertise it. Unlike Yang, who often hid sharpness beneath casual behavior, Jiang Wei spoke directly and rarely wasted words. Her silence had weight. She evaluated him as openly as he evaluated her. Jiang Wei observed that he did not behave like a demon born in the wilderness. That observation tightened every instinct. He gave a convenient answer. It was also true. She did not press. That restraint made her more dangerous than someone who would. Yi Chuyang provided the opposite experience. He returned from years of travel carrying stories, confidence, and several spider demon descendants, who immediately complicated his peaceful afternoon. The first young spider demon approached respectfully. The second tried showing off silk control. The third stared at his markings long enough that Bai Hua began giggling through their connection. He asked why she was laughing. Bai Hua said the visitors liked her big sister, while Yi Chuyang attempted a diplomatic explanation about exceptional bloodlines and compatibility. He told him that if his descendants appeared around his residence uninvited again, he would return them dehydrated enough to qualify as museum exhibits. He stopped explaining. The three spiders also discovered urgent responsibilities elsewhere. Yang laughed until she had to sit down. Bai Hua repeated the story to his children. His dignity never recovered. The absurd scene still taught him something. Nine Li did not view unusual beings purely as monsters or resources. They had social structures around demon species, transformed beings, and mixed communities that ordinary civilization lacked entirely. Perhaps he could exist here. The thought was comforting, then immediately uncomfortable. He did not want a hidden cave to become another cage, simply because its walls were kinder. His goal remained choosing where he belonged, not accepting whichever place tolerated him first. He continued cultivating. Vitality rose slowly compared with meteor absorption, but the growth felt stable and entirely his. No purple surges, no forced evolution, no mysterious voice. That stability became addictive. For several days, he almost understood why practitioners spend decades in seclusion. Then Spider Sense detected one of his children arguing with Bai Hua over food through the remote connection. Peace ended efficiently. Updates from outside continued through Lin. Secret bureau teams investigated the mountain ruins. Gaia expanded security around Chenjiang. Wang Miaoying remained stable. Long Ji reported Gu clan leadership, reconsidering direct action after losing senior experts. That should have reduced pressure. Instead, he felt the opposite. When multiple enemies become quiet simultaneously, either you succeeded brilliantly or something larger changed their priorities. Yang delivered the announcement that confirmed his suspicion. The sect master would emerge the following day. Every major nine-lease practitioner was ordered to attend. Yi Chuyang returned early. Jiang Wei reorganized security. Restricted zones received additional guards. The atmosphere became ceremonial and defensive at once. "Does this normally happen?" he asked. Yang shook her head. Not like this. That night he could not sleep. His mind kept circling the same three questions. What created the purple contamination? Why did his body absorb it differently? What had the great pollution done to Nine Li a century earlier? For months, every answer had expanded the mystery. He had become stronger than the witch who killed him, then stronger than Gu elders, then strong enough to survive federal weapons. Yet, the biggest questions had only grown. Strength was no longer the destination. It was the price of staying alive long enough to learn the truth. The next morning, bells sounded across Nine Li Cave heaven. He left the guest residence with Yang. Bai Hua remained behind with strict instructions not to follow. Promised. He did not believe her. Some family traditions become reliable quickly. At the main gathering hall, transformed demons stood beside human practitioners beneath banners older than modern nations. The air carried enough concentrated power that his instincts remained alert, despite the absence of direct hostility. Then the room quieted. The sectmaster had arrived, and before that gathering ended, his meteor mystery stopped belonging only to Yonggan. The sectmaster emerged without spectacle. No lightning, no heavenly music, no dramatic procession. The entire hall simply became silent before the figure fully appeared. That quiet told him more about authority than special effects ever could. Remained toward the rear with Yang. His body reduced as much as flexible transformation, allowed without compromising stability. The sect master surveyed the gathered elders, protectors, disciples, contracted beings, and transformed demons. Their attention eventually reached him. It stayed there one beat longer than comfortable. No hostility, no surprise either. That was somehow worse. The sectmaster praised Nine Li's progress during the 3-year seclusion, and specifically acknowledged Jiang Wei for maintaining the sect. People relaxed slightly. Then the tone changed. He felt it before the words. A faint tightening in the hall. The sectmaster said a message had arrived from Luolan, a source important enough that nobody interrupted. Nine Li Cave Heaven faced catastrophe. Not political trouble, not a Gu clan conflict. A disaster potentially comparable to the Great Pollution 100 years earlier. The hall erupted in restrained disbelief. Even Yi Chuyang's expression hardened. Someone asked whether the coming disaster could truly rival the event that had nearly broken Nine Li's leadership generations ago. Yang's heartbeat accelerated beside him. He understood why. A hidden realm containing hundreds of supernatural practitioners considered this warning existential. That meant the outside world's problems were only part of the picture. Yang finally asked the question, occupying everyone. Did Luolan say where the catastrophe came from? The sectmaster raised one hand. Silence returned. Then came 4 words translated through meaning rather than language. Inside and outside share one source. Every hair on his body lifted inside. Nine Li Cave Heaven and the human world shared the same source. His mind immediately returned to the meteor. Purple light, Wang Miao Ying, and worm hell. The force inside him matched the Great Pollution. Had the meteor caused everything? Or had it merely opened a door to something already connected across worlds? He realized then that his personal mystery might never have been personal. His rebirth could be one symptom of a catastrophe large enough to threaten entire hidden civilizations. That thought should have made him feel smaller. Instead, it clarified his next goal. He needed answers before the thing inside him decided what he was supposed to become. Much later, he obtained access to a Federal Secret Bureau internal summary describing what happened at headquarters during that same period. Li Wang had been inside a training room, performing bench presses and counting beyond 1,000, because apparently emotional processing is optional when you own enough muscle. Zichen teased him about avoiding virtual combat training. Li Wang admitted the mountain battle had left him frustrated, and more importantly, afraid in a way he could not easily explain. Zichen had processed the event through disciplined martial training. The Bureau had punished their failed operation by reducing merits and rotating several agents back to headquarters. Then Gu Yu entered the room. He found Li Wang counting repetitions and with a cruelty unique to bored. Intelligent people started asking him subtraction questions between lifts. 1,000 minus 7. Li Wang answered 993. 993 minus 7. He answered again, increasingly irritated. Gu Yu continued until Li Wang stopped lifting entirely and demanded to know whether the A-rank keeper believed disciplinary action had also destroyed his arithmetic. Gu Yu calmly lifted the barbell away with one hand. The room finally gave him its full attention at once. Gu Yu said he needed Li Wang listening instead of counting. The humor disappeared from the room. He had received new information from the investigation into Yanggan's recent abnormal events. Zichen's posture changed immediately. According to the report, her first question was not about the meteor, the Gu clan, or the destroyed mountain. She asked about one name, Bai Shi, and that is where the record ended.